Chapter 35:45. Okay, there's no need to say anymore. Xiaoyao, help me look after the cave. This is a 1,000-mile sound transmitting talisman. If you have any urgent matters, you can release this talisman. This bronze pillar country is only 2,000 miles in size. This talisman should be able to reach you. Xiaohua took out a 1,000-mile sound transmitting talisman and gave it to Qin Xiaoyao. Qin Xiaoyao received the 1,000-mile sound transmitting talisman and carefully put it away. He then reminded, Master, Jade Mountain is on the other side of the bronze pillar country. It's more than 2,000 miles away. Master must be careful. This old man knows. With that, Xiaohua waved his hand, and the Pegasus flew out from the space. Slurp, slurp. Once the Pegasus came out of the space, it immediately emitted a faint white brilliance. The Pegasus spread its wings and emitted a white light. It even raised its head and let out a long neigh that shook the surroundings. Master, take care. Qin Xiaoyao hurriedly bowed and saluted. This disciple respectfully sends Master off. With a wave of Xiaohua's hand, Lu, Yi, and Wang Bifei flew up from the ground and landed on the neck of the heavenly horse. Xiaohua also got on the heavenly horse. Then, Xiaohua patted the heavenly horse's neck. The heavenly horse's four hooves stomped on the ground as it flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Not long after, the heavenly horse's brilliance turned into a small dot. Only Xiaohua's singing voice could be heard in the entire Black Cloud Ridge. The Black Cloud Ridge's battle formation has been completed. From now on, the Tao Gate has a foundation. Respectfully sends Master off. On the Black Cloud Ridge, whether it was seeing the Pegasus' brilliance or hearing Xiaohua's singing voice, everyone respectfully shouted, Io! Only Qin Xiaoyao raised his head from the ground and hurriedly raised his hand as if he wanted to remind Xiaohua. Unfortunately, Xiaohua's figure had already disappeared. Qin Xiaoyao could only mutter in his heart, Master, you're flying in the wrong direction. Early morning, several days later, on the other side of the Bronze Pillar Country's capital, the sun shone down. The city walls of the Bronze Pillar Country looked especially mighty under the sunlight. Under the warm sunlight, teams of heavily armored soldiers patrolled back and forth with weapons in their hands. These soldiers had tense and serious expressions on their faces, as if a great battle was about to break out. Open the city gate. Below the city wall, a loud and clear voice sounded. Rumble. The city gate made a heavy sound as it was slowly pushed open. The small merchants and peddlers who had been waiting outside for a long time were about to rush in with their wooden carts. The carts were filled with vegetables, chickens, ducks, and other things. They were all goods that these merchants relied on to make a living. Wait! An extremely imposing roar sounded from within the city gates, followed by the sounds of horse hooves and armor. Several groups of soldiers wearing the same type of armor as those on the city walls rushed out from within the city gates under the lead of several mounted officers, blocking these merchants outside the city gates. Sir, what are you doing? The merchant in front was an old man who was pulling a cart of vegetables. The vegetables on the cart were abnormally fresh, and there were even some sparkling dewdrops hanging on the leaves. This little one has to deliver vegetables to Master Wang in the western part of the city. He wants to entertain guests today. If this little one's vegetables aren't fresh and miss the master's feast, this little one can't bear the responsibility. Shut up. The officer in front of the horse scolded, then raised his head and said, This official is under the orders of the Ministry of War. From today onwards, this official will guard the East Gate. Everyone coming in and out must be inspected by this official. Sir, inspect what? This little one passes through the East Gate every day to sell chickens and ducks at the market in the eastern part of the city. If you don't believe me, you can ask the old guard of the gate. Behind the old merchant, the middle-aged man pushing the cart of chickens and ducks was somewhat dissatisfied. Even the chickens and ducks on the cart started to quack. For a moment, the entire area outside the East Gate was in chaos. Ha! All of you shut up. The officer waved the horsewhip in his hand and said angrily, Right now, we are at war. for the safety of our bronze pillar country, and for your safety, the Ministry of War has ordered that not only the East Gate, but also the other 3 gates of the capital city. Maybe there are spies from the enemy countries among you. Is there a weapon hidden in your vegetables? Io, sir. The old man's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly shouted, "Take a look for yourself. This little one is a native of the Bronze Pillar Country. How could I possibly do something that would let down the Bronze Pillar Country?" That's right, sir. This war isn't just a matter of a day or two. It's already been hundreds of days. What does it have to do with us? I heard that the Jiang country was already exterminated by the king. Who dares to go against my Bronze Pillar Country? What is it? You don't even dare to let me check? The officer looked at the noisy crowd and laughed sinisterly. Instead of saying so much here, I've already checked it. Sir, the old man in front of him smiled bitterly. It's not that this little one doesn't dare to let you check, but the problem is that this little one's vegetables. All right, sir, please be gentle with them, just like how you treat your own wife, okay? This is all copper coins. Shut up for lousy. The officer waved the horsewhip in his hand, but he was only threatening him and did not really whip him. Then he ordered the soldiers beside him, "Quickly go and check. Don't let go of the suspect." Yes. The group of soldiers responded and rushed into the crowd like wolves and tigers. These soldiers were not as kind as the officers. Immediately, the sound of chickens crowing and dogs barking could be heard. The seemingly fresh vegetables turned into ruins in a moment. The old man at the side was distressed to protect them, but he was not as strong as the soldiers. After the soldiers checked randomly, they waved their hands and let him pass. They then rushed behind the old man. The old man was about to cry and stood there without moving. When the officer saw the old man blocking the city gate, he frowned and shouted, "Old man, why aren't you hurrying to deliver the vegetables? Although this dish is a bit messy, it doesn't affect its consumption. Even if Master Wong doesn't want it, you can still sell it at the market." "Sai, sir," the old man said with a sullen face. "Vegetables can be sold at the market for 30 copper coins." This little one woke up so early to give them to Master Wong. He was kind enough to give this little one 33 copper coins. Today, this little one has messed up Master Wong's matter, so don't think about sending food to him in the future. It's only 3 copper coins. Why are you complaining again? Look at how you're blocking the people behind you. A young officer at the side roared and was about to wave the horsewhip in his hand. "Stop!" The middle-aged officer shouted and stopped the young officer's recklessness. He took out a few copper coins and threw it to the old man. "We're guarding here for the safety of our copper pillar state. There are many people entering the city, so we can't treat them as gently as we treat our wives. This is Lousy's compensation for you. Take it and quickly scram into the city. Don't block the way. Go and tell that so-called Master Wong that the vegetables today were ruined by Lieutenant Sitaming. If he respects Lousy, then you won't be in trouble. If he looks down on Lousy, then Lousy can't do anything about it." "Yes, yes." The old farmer beamed with joy. He quickly picked up the few copper coins scattered on the cart and stuffed them into his pocket. Then he hurriedly pushed his small cart and rushed into the city gate. Lieutenant Situ, the officer at the side, didn't understand. Although the old farmer's vegetables were messed up and damaged, they can still be sold at the market after peeling off the leaves and sprinkling some water on them. It's only 3 copper coins. He's obviously... Without waiting for the officer to finish, Lieutenant Situ waved his hand and said, "No need to say more. It's just 3 copper coins. To you and me, it's pocket money. To this old farmer, it's just a day's worth of food. Giving it to a beggar is also giving it to him. At least he won't be blocking the city gate." "Yes, Lieutenant is wise," the young officer complimented and then looked at the mess outside the city gate. He whispered, "Lieutenant, what's going on today? Why did the Ministry of War suddenly want us to guard the 4 gates? Aren't there still 4 military commanders above the 4 gates? They have strong soldiers and strong horses. What kind of situation have they not seen before? Furthermore, when the army left the country and my king personally led the army, the capital city wasn't so vigilant. Could it be that something happened?" This Lieutenant Situ hesitated slightly. He raised his eyes and looked to the left. Other than the two of them, there was no one else. He whispered, Gao Peng, this is only for me to tell you. You can't say a word to anyone else. Lieutenant Situ, don't worry. Don't you know what kind of character I have? When the young man named Gao Peng heard this, his eyes lit up. He lowered his head and whispered a reply. Lieutenant Situ nodded. Actually, it's not considered a secret. Furthermore, it's been almost 100 days. Although the 6 ministries in the imperial court requested for it to be kept a secret, paper can't hide fire. Even if I don't say it today, you will know sooner or later. Lieutenant Situ's words made Gao Peng's heart itch even more. He anxiously asked, What's secret? You actually want me to personally investigate the people who enter the capital city? The Grand Tutor is dead. Lieutenant Situ accidentally looked to the left and whispered, What? The Grand Tutor. Gao Peng was indeed still a young man. His eyes flashed with an expression of disbelief as he cried out in surprise. Do you want to die? Lieutenant Situ raised his hand and covered Gao Peng's mouth that was beside his ear. He angrily said, If you want to die, don't implicate me. Lieutenant. Gao Peng hurriedly apologized and lowered his voice. It's all my fault. It's not that I was careless. This news, cough cough, it's really too shocking. The Grand Tutor's divine abilities are incomparable. He's already an immortal on the land. How is this possible? Not bad. You still have some knowledge. You didn't ask me if the Grand Tutor died of illness. Lieutenant Situ nodded slightly and seemed to be praising him. Gao Peng smiled and said, I'm just too surprised. I'm not brainless. Anyone who thinks about it, with the Grand Tutor's divine abilities in today's battle formation, how could he have died of illness? Chapter 35-46. Commandant Situ had obviously been asked this question before, so he nodded his head in distress. That's the problem. How did the Imperial Advisor die? Previously, the Imperial Advisor had single-handedly gone deep into Jianghua and killed the Imperial Advisor. And today, Jianghua's revenge? Gao Peng immediately understood. His face immediately became vigilant, his eyes looking at the commotion outside the city gate. He nodded and said, If that's the case, then we must guard the 4 gates, assist the Admiral and the rest in interrogating the villagers, and strictly prevent the remnants of the Jiang country from entering the capital to cause trouble. That's right. Commandant Situ replied with a smile, then said mysteriously, However, this old man feels that the Ministry of War is making a mountain out of a molehill. It's purely taking off your pants to fart. Gao Peng was tactful and hurriedly smiled. This subordinate is willing to listen to Sir's wise opinion. Number 1, an expert who can kill the Imperial Preceptor. How can we see him? How could he possibly mix in with such vulgar villagers? Commandant Situ proudly pointed with his finger. Do you think there will be one here? Of course not. Gao Peng suddenly realized. Those are all immortal-level characters. How could they possibly enter from the city gate? What about the second, my lord? The second? Commandant Situ laughed. Naturally, it's someone who can enter from the city gate. Then, who is that? Gao Peng did not understand. Commandant Situ said again, Those who can enter from the city gate are naturally the remnants of the Jiang country. Gao Ming nodded. Indeed, but the problem is, Commandant Situ said again, if the Jiang country found an expert to kill the Imperial Advisor, the Jiang country would definitely be recruiting troops and expanding their power. How could the Jiang country develop their power to the capital of our Copper Pillar nation? Yeah, that's true. Gao Peng suddenly realized, and then asked again, but what if it wasn't the Jiang country who asked someone to kill the Imperial Advisor? If not, why would we guard the 4 gates and interrogate the villagers? Oh, that's right. Gao Peng nodded even more. Sir is right. It seems like we don't need to come at all. But the question is, why would the Ministry of War give such a brainless order? Lieutenant Situ smiled and pointed at his own head. You'll have to use your brain. Think about it. Even the Imperial Preceptor had fallen. How could the monarch not be furious? What about the 6 divisions? Don't you have to show that you're busy? Don't you have to show your existence? Don't you have to show your attitude? I understand. So, even if you want to fart, you must take off your pants. It means that you're really farting. Gao Peng laughed, but just as he was laughing, his eyebrows twitched slightly. He looked into the distance and said in a low voice, "Sir, look over there." After the villagers who entered the city, "Oh." Colonel Situ was stunned. He raised his eyes and followed Gao Peng's gaze. His eyes flashed with doubt. In just a short moment, more people had gathered at the East Gate. As this was the first time they were conducting an interrogation, Colonel Situ's subordinates were obviously not familiar with it. Few people were let off, and many were left behind. Behind these people stood 4 men. These 4 men were not tall, and if they were standing on the ground, they might not be able to see anything strange. However, Colonel Situ and Gao Peng were riding on horses, so they could see the difference between the 4 men at a glance. Most of the people who woke up early were farmers or peddlers in the suburbs. These 4 men were obviously dressed as warriors. In the middle of the 4 men was a young scholar dressed in white Confucian robes. If it was just this, it wouldn't have attracted Gao Peng's attention. What made Gao Peng and Colonel Situ frown was that this scholar's gaze was flickering. He looked at the soldiers who were conducting the interrogation and seemed to want to leave. However, in just a short while, more people pushing carts came from all around them, blocking them and making it difficult for them to advance or retreat. What was special was that when Colonel Situ's gaze landed on the scholar clearly shifted his gaze and looked elsewhere. He even swept a few glances at the top of the city wall. Colonel Situ and Gao Peng were sent to the East Gate to guard the interrogation. Of course, there were people who didn't care about sand in their eyes. Seeing this, how could they not know that there was definitely something wrong with this scholar? Colonel Situ raised his eyebrows, and Gao Peng immediately understood. He slightly spurred his horse and left from where he was, slowly entering the city gate. It was obvious that he was going to inform the general on the city wall. Colonel Situ jumped down from his horse and slightly tightened his grip on the horsewhip in his hand. He was about to remove the weapon from the hook beside the saddle. At this moment, a slightly impatient voice rang out from behind him. "What are you all doing? Why aren't you all moving aside?" Colonel Situ was stunned and hurriedly turned his head to look. He saw that within the city gate, there were 2 children in embroidered clothes. The one in front had a thin figure, and the one behind was slightly chubby. However, both of them had skin as white as jade and eyes as bright as stars. With one look, one could tell that they weren't ordinary people. And behind them, there was another thin scholar in scholarly robes. He held a folding fan in his left hand and a scroll in his right hand. He shook his head as he read and slowly walked towards Colonel Situ. And the impatient voice came from the child in front of him. "Hurry up and move aside. Don't block my family's young master's path." Which family's young master is this? Colonel Situ was stunned. Just as he was muttering in his heart, the 2 children were already in front of him. Colonel Situ didn't dare to delay and hurriedly moved aside. There were many high-ranking officials and dignitaries in the capital of the Bronze Pillar country. Naturally, he couldn't recognize all of them. Furthermore, he didn't receive any orders to interrogate people who left the city, so naturally, he wouldn't stop them. "Oh, what's going on?" Walking to the city gate, the scholar shifted his gaze away from the scroll and looked at the commotion at the city gate in confusion. He frowned and asked. The thin child in front of him hurriedly said, "Young master, this is called entering the city to interrogate and check if there's anything wrong with the people entering the city." "Oh, so that's how it is." That scholar's gaze indifferently swept over the faces of Officer Situ, the surrounding soldiers, and the nearby villagers. Then, without stopping, he continued to walk out of the city gates at a neither fast nor slow pace. Seeing that the scholar didn't even know what an interrogation was, Colonel Situ knew that he couldn't afford to offend this scholar. Or rather, this scholar had nothing to do with him. Thus, he raised his hand and took down his Damascus steel spear from his horse, preparing to follow behind the scholar. In the distance, the scholar in the crowd clearly saw Colonel Situ and Gao Peng's actions and knew that things weren't going well. A trace of panic appeared on his face. He turned his head and was about to lead the four martial artists out of the crowd. However, the scholar raised his head and looked at the spear and sword on the city wall. Hesitation appeared in his eyes again. It was at this moment that the scholar who came out of the city happened to walk to his left. The scholar's eyes turned, and he hurriedly squeezed out of the pile of carriages and called out, Brother Su, I'm here." The one who came out of the city was naturally Xiao Hua. He brought Lu, Yi, and Wang Bianfei out of the Black Cloud Ridge and didn't directly fly to the Jade Mountain. Instead, he made a turn and landed in the Bronze Pillar country. He had some things he wanted to ask Zhaixing Lu's Zhuqing. Unfortunately, Zhuqing was no longer in the Bronze Pillar country. As for where Zhaixing Lu went, the new manager didn't know. Thus, Xiao Hua waited for a few days and participated in a small auction last night before preparing to leave for the Jade Mountain. Of course, with Xiao Hua's current cultivation, he no longer changed his appearance. He didn't know if the Bronze Pillar country knew of his arrival, or if they knew and didn't dare to make sound. In short, Xiao Hua very smoothly brought the two children out of the Bronze Pillar country's capital at daybreak. As for why Xiao Hua was dressed in scholarly robes and had the two children call him young master, it was purely on a whim. It was like Yu Zhongqiyuan's so-called study tour. Xiao Hua saw a scholar in embroidered clothes squeeze out of the crowd entering the city and wanted to pull him back. Moreover, the scholar even called him Brother Su. At first, he was somewhat astonished, but when he saw the scholar's slightly panicked appearance and the weapon in Commandant Sidhu's hands behind him, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart and let the scholar grab his scholarly robes. Sure enough, when the scholar saw that Xiao Hua didn't reveal any doubt or disgust, he was overjoyed and called out, "Brother Su, this little brother waited outside the city for an entire night. Didn't we agree to go to Jingling Mountain last night? If you leave the city now, how will you be able to see the sunrise?" As the scholar spoke, he winked at Xiao Hua, as if reminding Xiao Hua not to expose him. Xiao Hua smiled and said in a clear voice, "Brother Lang, it's not that this little one didn't go last night. This little one suddenly had an important matter at home, and this little one had no choice. Today, as soon as the city gates opened, this little one hurriedly came out. Wasn't it precisely to apologize to Brother Lang?" "AI, don't talk about apologizing." The scholar took advantage of the situation to pull Xiao Hua's sleeve and walk outside. "You'd better think about how to explain it to Miss Ling Hua. You've already stood her up twice in a row." Forgive me, Xiao Hua said with a smile. "It seems this little one wants to be the host and bring a bramble to ask for forgiveness." As they spoke, the two people very affectionately left. Lu Ying naturally wasn't surprised. He pulled the somewhat dazed Wang Yifei and walked in front, while the four men protected them at the back. Commandant Sidhu naturally stood in the distance, somewhat uncertain. However, seeing Xiao Hua's calm appearance, he didn't seem to be faking it, so he didn't chase after him. As for above the city wall, when Gao Peng looked down again, Xiao Hua and the scholar had already walked far away. The scholar pulled Xiao Hua for no less than half the time it took to eat a meal. Only then did he slightly tilt his head to see if there was anyone chasing behind him. Afterwards, he let go of Xiao Hua's hand, but he saw that there were still some sweat stains on Xiao Hua's sleeve. It was clearly from the scholar's hand when he was nervous. Xiao Hua looked up and down and cupped his hands, saying, "Brother, the city gates are already far away. Presumably those soldiers already can't see us. This one still has some matters to attend to, so forgive me for not seeing you off. Goodbye." That scholar saw that Xiao Hua didn't drag on and didn't ask him why he suddenly pulled him back. He hurriedly returned the greeting and said with a smile, "Brother, you've misunderstood." Chapter 35-47. Finished speaking, Xiao Hua began to walk. The scholar opened his mouth, seemingly wanting to say something to thank Xiao Hua, but seeing Xiao Hua's carefree appearance, he didn't say anything in the end. However, just as Xiao Hua took 2 steps, he heard one of the 4 strong men behind him hurriedly whisper into the scholar's ear, "Young master, I'm afraid it won't be easy for you and me to enter the city today. The person young master is meeting is still waiting in the city? We can naturally go, but wouldn't that make people unhappy? Young master, why don't you ask this young master to bring you into the city? The strong man emphasized the word please, causing Xiao Hua to frown. However, Xiao Hua pretended not to hear. He raised the scroll in his hand and shook his head while reading. Confucius said, Shun is filial, virtuous as a saint, respected as the son of heaven, rich in the four seas. Ancestral temples reward him, descendants protect him. Thus, virtuous people must obtain their position, their wealth, their fame, and their longevity. Thus, creatures of heaven must be valued because of their talents. Those who plant them nurture them. Those who topple them overturn them. The poem said, Jia Lu is a gentleman, constitutionalist and virtuous, suitable for the people, receiving blessings from heaven. Bless and protect those who are blessed by heaven. Thus, virtuous people must receive orders. Xiao Hua had only walked a few feet when the scholar hurriedly caught up with him, even though his face was filled with displeasure. He said loudly, Young master, please wait. Young master is really in a good mood. You're still reading The Doctrine of the Mean when you're out for a field trip. This young master really admires you. It's just that, does young master have any thoughts about these lines? This young master had some thoughts when I was reading them that day. I don't know if I can share them with young master. Oh, is that so? Young master actually has some brilliant ideas? Xiao Hua stood still, turned around, and asked with a smile that wasn't a smile, then this student would like to ask young master about this line. Thus, virtuous people must obtain their position, their wealth, their fame, and their longevity. Thus, creatures of heaven must be valued because of their talents. Those who plant them nurture them. Those who topple them overturn them. Is there any other meaning? When the scholar saw that Xiao Hua had taken a bait, he smiled and said, The meaning of this sentence isn't anything special, but it means that a person of great virtue must obtain the position that he should obtain in this world. After hearing what the scholar had said, Xiao Hua smiled and said, Indeed, a virtuous person should be like this. However, if it's a person without virtue, as mentioned in the 27th volume of Yu Shi Mingyu, he would definitely have evil retribution, right? Yu Shi Mingyan, volume 27. The scholar stared blankly for a moment, clearly not understanding. After a moment, he seemed to have thought of something, and his face turned pale. He bit his lip and cupped his hands, saying, This young one understands. Young master's help just now has made this young one very grateful. This young one does not dare to ask for more. And it's best to correct your mistakes. Xiao Huan nodded slightly, no longer paying attention to the scholar. He waved his hand and left. However, as soon as he left, the burly man hurried over with an angry look. He urged, Young master, why are you so hesitant? In the end, is refinement more important, or is the master more important? The young master pondered for a moment, stamped his feet again, and hurriedly chased after Xiao Hua. He shouted, Brother, this young one has a presumptuous request. I don't know if it's possible. Since it's a presumptuous request, then don't say it. Xiao Hua did not stop walking, nor did he turn his head as he said indifferently, brother, if this young one was not forced to this point, I would not be so humble. The scholar's face turned purple, but he still chased after him and sighed. This young one does not have any special request. I just want to ask young master to bring this young one into the city. Xiao Hua stopped, looked at the scholar, and said word by word, Although this young one does not know what brother wants to do, since you are hiding from the soldiers, it must be somewhat difficult to meet people. This young one can indeed bring brother into the city, but if something happens, it will inevitably bring disaster to this young one and even this young one's family. Brother can think for your family. Why can't this young one think for my family? Brother has no reason to drag this young one into the water. This young one has already taken a risk to help brother. There is no need for brother to keep relying on this young one, right? The scholar's face turned even redder from Xiao Hua's words. He stuttered for a long time, not knowing how to persuade Xiao Hua. The quick-wittedness he had when he pulled Xiao Hua the city gate had long disappeared. That brat you, a burly man, was anxious and shouted, "If you continue to be so long-winded, do you believe that I will cut off your head?" "I believe," Xiao Hua said coldly. "Young master, the nobles of the Copper Pillar State are all good people. This scholar must be the son of a noble. It is not right for us to take him." Another burly man said in a low voice, "Put a knife to his neck. He dares not to bring us into the city." "That's right." The scholar clenched his teeth and said, "The Copper Pillar State sent troops to secretly kill me. Dozens of them, and even captured father. This student and the Copper Pillar State's blood feud is absolutely irreconcilable. Since this scholar is the son of a noble, he is also this student's enemy." It's the Pegasus that I saw when I made an appointment with Senior Dao Hong at Jiaxing Lu. But how could this Pegasus appear here, in the hands of this senior? Speaking of this, the scholar regretted again and whispered, "I didn't expect this senior to still be in Bronze Pillar Country. How can a person who can subdue a Pegasus be ordinary? I missed an opportunity in vain. If I had the help of this senior, wouldn't it be more useful than Senior Dao Hong? Even if, young master, you think too much." A brawny man next to him shook his head and said, "This young master is a Confucian cultivator, and he must be a great Confucian from the military school of Bronze Pillar Country. Why would he help young master? If he knew young master's background, it would be strange if he didn't personally capture young master." "Sigh, that's true." That young master sighed again. The conflict between fellow disciples is far greater than the external threat. This great Confucian of the military school is not as good as a Taoist cultivator. "Let's go, Wang Jin. We will go to the other city gates to take a look. No matter what, we must enter the city today. Senior Dao Hong, please help us." With that, the young master led the four of them through several woods and led several horses towards the other gates of the capital city of the Bronze Pillar Nation. Xiao Hua also withdrew his Buddhist consciousness. Dao Hong of the Taoist sect? Who is that? He actually appeared at the auction in Jiaxing Lu, and this young master actually won as well? Xiao Hua smiled and shook his head. This world is really strange. It's really called meeting frequently. It's only been 10 months, and we meet again. I just don't know if this Dao Hong is the one who fought over the cultivation method with me that day. Master, Lu Yi, who was sitting in front of the carriage, smiled. "I remember that master is a warm-hearted person. Why didn't you help us today?" This carriage was precisely the one that Xiao Hua had casually bought from Jiaxing Lu last night. When the carriage flew, it connected with the brilliance of the Pegasus, protecting Xiao Hua and the others within the brilliance. The fierce winds in the sky were unable to blow Lu Yi and Wang Yifei. Chapter 35-48. Hearing Lu Yi's confusion, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "There are too many injustices in this world. As long as there are people, there will definitely be injustices. However, these injustices don't necessarily have to be taken care of. These injustices don't necessarily have to become fairness. Under the heavenly Tao, fairness and unfairness are normal. There is no such thing as absolute fairness. Take this scholar, for example. He has the ability to solve his own problems and has people helping him. Why should this old man interfere? What's more, this scholar did not mention his name from the beginning to the end. Although this is a way to protect himself, deep down, he doesn't trust this old man at all. So why should this old man help him? Also, just from this scholar's actions, he might not be any more honorable than Commandant Situ, who guards the gate. In this old man's opinion, Commandant Situ's heart is filled with sympathy. Guarding the gate is 100 times better than this scholar. Although this old man is the enemy of Copper Pillar State, helping this scholar without any reason is going against this old man's conscience. Xiao Hua said, and then told the story of Commandant Situ giving the vegetable farmer the copper coins. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei fell in a deep thought when they heard this. "That's right, Master. What is written in the 27th volume of Yu Shi Ming Yan? When you said it, That scholar's expression immediately changed. Wang Bianfei asked curiously, "That's a story about ungrateful people." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Presumably, that scholar has read it." However, the scholar's last words, "Understand the heavens, understand human relations, speak the holy words, understand the world." Which great scholar said this? Although this old man doesn't dare to say that he has read all of the classics, he has seen most of them. How come I have never seen them in the Jade Eyes? This scholar's origin is somewhat strange. After saying this, Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "No need to mention that scholar. This old man has already told you the location of Qianyu Mountain. You can ride the Pegasus and slowly go there. You can go there in 3 or 4 days." Leading the two boys and identifying the direction was probably what Xiao Hua wanted them to do the most, right? "Yes, master," Lu Yi obediently replied and didn't ask any more questions. However, Wang Bianfei was different. He smiled and said, "Master, the Jade Mountain in front of us is only a few thousand miles away. This Pegasus can probably reach it within a day and a night. Why do you need 3 to 4 days? It's clearly a trap. Why are you in such a hurry to jump into it?" Xiao Hua laughed. "Let the monarch of Bronze Pillar Country be anxious for a few days." After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua picked up the scroll again and glanced at it. He sighed with emotion and said, "This Confucian cultivator is really amazing. Reading a scroll is definitely not the same thing as exploring the Jade Eyes. From this scroll, not only can I read the meaning of Confucian cultivation, I can also sense the awe-inspiring qi gushing out between the lines. If you deliberately comprehend the awe-inspiring qi between heaven and earth and feel that it is incomparably majestic, this kind of cultivation method is much easier than my Dao Sex qi refining. What this old man doesn't understand the most is that this Confucian cultivator's true qi doesn't simply fall into the middle dantian. That true qi will also spread between heaven and earth and fuse with the awe-inspiring qi. Every Confucian cultivator will send out their true qi. In every era, more true qi will appear. No wonder the awe-inspiring qi in the hidden immortal continent is increasingly mellow and rich. It even has the precipitation of time. Once a Confucian cultivator is useful, this awe-inspiring qi will immediately obey his command. Isn't this similar to the inheritance of Yao cultivators? Master said it so mysteriously. This little one also wants to practice Confucian cultivation. Lu Yi sat in front of Xiao Hua and said with a smile. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "That's not necessary. Our Dao Sex cultivation method is also extraordinary. Even our methods and divine abilities are more powerful. As long as you cultivate to the extreme, you can also achieve the effect of myriad streams returning to the origin. Moreover, if you want to cultivate secret techniques outside of Dao Sect, you might as well refer to Buddhism." Yes, this disciple understands. This disciple was just joking. Lu Yi nodded. Then he looked at Wang Bianfei, who was sitting beside him holding a talisman brush and fiddling with some talisman paper. He said with a wry smile, "This disciple's talent is stupid. Compared to junior brother, this disciple is far inferior. In the future, I will be satisfied if I can achieve 10% of master's achievements." Senior brother Wang Bianfei raised his head and said with a smile, "You are talking to master. Why are you talking about this little brother for no reason? Everyone's fate is different. Who knows who can go further?" Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Your talent is 100 times better than this old man's. As long as you put your heart into the Tao of heaven and cultivate bitterly, you will definitely be able to reach the realm of enlightenment. Senior brother, please wait a moment." Wang Bianfei faintly smiled and spread out the talisman paper. After thinking for a bit, the talisman brush moved. In a moment, a vivid image of a person appeared on the talisman paper. That person's face was somewhat distressed and also somewhat envious. It looked very lively. Just as he finished drawing, Wang Bianfei laughed. Wasn't this person Lu Yi's appearance just now? Junior brother. Lu Yi's face was somewhat red. He reached out and snatched the talisman paper. He said angrily, I was just envious of you. You still have. Io, junior brother, you can actually draw yellow talismans? Oh, is that so? Xiaohua was also slightly stunned. He had taught Wang Bianfei the art of talisman making, but it was only the most rudimentary. It was even different from the yellow talismans he made. After all, Wang Bianfei didn't have any true qi and didn't know how to use true qi. Master, look, Lu Yi said with a sad face. I am your senior brother. How can I suddenly fall behind so many junior brothers? Just now, when this little one wanted to tear this portrait, I clearly felt the fluctuation of magic power on this talisman paper. Xiaohua smiled as he took the talisman paper. He scanned it with his divine sense. Sure enough, between the lines of this portrait, there was a faint condensation of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Although it still couldn't be compared to yellow talismans, it was still able to condense true qi using talisman brush, talisman ink, and talisman paper. This was the most fundamental improvement. Genius. After all, you're a genius. Xiaohua was somewhat speechless. He looked at Wang Bianfei's slightly uneasy appearance and said with a smile, Correct, Bianfei. You can already draw yellow talismans. Right. How's the progress of your qi refinement technique? Disciple has already reached the peak of the first level of qi refinement. Perhaps within a day or two, I can break through to the second level of qi refinement. Wang Bianfei didn't dare to conceal anything. Under the ecstasy in his heart, he honestly replied. Xiaohua nodded. He understood. For the first 4 levels of qi refinement, the disciples of ordinary cultivation sects would generally reach the first level in a year. Wang Bianfei's speed couldn't be considered too shocking. After thinking for a moment, Xiaohua indifferently said, Correct. Don't be in a hurry to break through to the first level of qi refinement. Stay at the peak of the first level for a few more days and comprehend the mysteries within. Yes, disciple understands. Wang Bianfei hastily replied. Xiaohua thought for a moment and said, You have a talent that's superior to others in the field of painting. I'm afraid that this Tao of talismans is destined to be stronger than others. However, what this old man is going to teach you now is still the most common, or perhaps the most common talisman crafting techniques. You should first practice and focus on comprehending the wonders of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. To be specific, use your heart as the brush, use your true qi as the ink, and heaven and earth as the canvas. Thread, paint between heaven and earth. Wang Bianfei's eyes lit up all of a sudden, flashing with a rare fanaticism. He almost couldn't restrain his voice as he said in a low voice, Master, this is precisely this disciple's dream since childhood. And Xiaohua said, and returned the portrait to Wang Bianfei. He already understood that his talisman crafting techniques and the Tao of formations should be able to be passed on to Wang Bianfei. Senior brother, Wang Bianfei, took the portrait and respectfully handed it to Lu Yi, saying, This is the first work of this little brother that contains true qi in this life. I respectfully offer it to senior brother. I hope that senior brother can cherish it. Good. Lu Yi smiled. Although he was somewhat envious in his heart, he was more happy. Taking the portrait with both hands, Lu Yi carefully put it away in his bosom. Lu Yi, how's your cultivation? Xiaohua asked again. This old man brought you out to give you pointers. If this foundation isn't laid properly, it will be difficult in the future. In the past, this old man spent countless thoughts in order to consolidate his Tao foundation. I would rather not step into the second level of qi refinement. And, fortunately, Zhang Qingxiao and Xiao Xianrui weren't here. Otherwise, after hearing Xiao Hua's words, they would have immediately fallen from the flying carriage. It wasn't that he didn't want to advance. It was that he couldn't advance no matter what. Yes, this disciple understands. The foundation is more important than anything else. This disciple will definitely follow Master's words. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei respectfully replied. Although Lu Yi had met Xiaohua earlier and also came into contact with qi refinement techniques earlier, he awakened his spirit later than Wang Bianfei. His aptitude was also a bit worse than Wang Bianfei's. Although he had already stepped into the first level of qi refinement, there was still a distance from the so-called peak. After Xiao Hua asked, he gave them some pointers and let them comprehend it themselves. Xiao Hua's own cultivation was mostly done by himself. Therefore, he was also the same when teaching disciples. He only told them the techniques and comprehensions, and later let them figure out themselves. Perhaps this was a legendary like teacher, like disciple. Xiao Hua naturally didn't need to worry about the heavenly horse. It spread its wings and slowly flew in the sky, looking so carefree. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept over. Seeing nothing strange, he sent his consciousness into the space. The green-robed Xiao Hua had already returned from the nascent soul in his lower dantian to the space. He was sitting cross-legged in the sky, facing the shabby, immortal execution stage. Strands of lightning fell from the immortal execution stage and entered the green-robed Xiao Hua's body. Seeing this, Jade Archive Xiao Hua was somewhat baffled. "Fellow Taoist, please." Jade Archive Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "I don't know what fellow Taoist is doing. Do our techniques have this kind of secret cultivation technique?" "Fellow Taoist." The green-robed Xiao Hua opened his eyes and said in a low voice, "All techniques are created by someone. Isn't fellow Taoist foundation establishment technique also created by yourself? Why can't I figure out a cultivation technique by myself, relying on this lightning to temper the body? It doesn't seem to be a secret technique." Jade Archive Xiao Hua was somewhat bewildered. Sigh, the green-robed Xiao Hua stood up, and the lightning disappeared. He sighed and said, "Fellow Taoist doesn't know. I discovered a secret while I was controlling my nascent soul." Chapter 35-49. Yes, I know this. It should be the secret of the 5 qi righteous thunder. Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded. This secret was also a big question in his heart. Green-robed Xiao Hua said again, "Yes. Now, my nascent soul can already condense its body and condense its Tao foundation in the 5 qi righteous thunder. But I have doubts again. Why can the 5 qi righteous thunder condense the nascent soul's body and let it grow quickly? But why can't the lightning produced by the immortal execution stage in my space? Even the lightning tribulation and so on that fellow Taoist experienced before also can't?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua touched his nose and said with a bitter smile, "This heavenly thunder looks the same, but I'm afraid it's divided into many types. I remember before in Star Picking Tower, didn't I also hear about heavenly thunder and earthly thunder? Gung Xian metal thunder, Shinyu metal thunder, Jia Yiwood thunder, Bing Ding fire thunder, and Wu Ji earth thunder. The 5 qi righteous thunder might be different from the lightning tribulation and other heavenly thunder, right?" "Not necessarily." Green-robed Xiao Hua stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion in the air. A ball of lightning appeared in his palm. The lightning flashed, and countless mysteries were annihilated. Even the Jade Archive Xiao Hua couldn't see through it with a glance. This poor Taoist knows that the birth of lightning and the destruction of lightning is the beginning of life. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth is also born along with the lightning strikes. However, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth seems to be dead, or it could be said that it is lifeless. It doesn't have the vitality of heaven and earth like the noble qi. This is also the difference between my Tao sect's divine ability and Confucian's divine ability. Then why is there life in the righteous qi? It should be related to the 5 qi, right? It should also be related to Confucian's 5 qi unification, right? Yes, Jade Archive Xiao Hua naturally understood what green-robed Xiao Hua said. He nodded and said, "Although my Tao sect also pays attention to the 5 elements, Tao sect's 5 elements are all over the world. Confucian's 5 elements are in the body. Since it's in the body, it's alive, not dead. Tao sect emphasizes the 5 elements. Confucian cultivators emphasize the 5 qi. Although they both involve metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, there's an essential difference. Perhaps there's no essential difference, but at the peak of cultivation, there's an essential difference. Green-robed Xiao Hua continued. Sometimes, the myriad streams may not return to the origin. We haven't obtained the true 5-cheese unification yet, so we can't make a generalization. Jade Archive Xiao Hua shook her head. Fellow Taoist, have you ever wondered what the yuan of the 5-cheese unifications is? Is it the yuan of the vital energy of heaven and earth? The yuan of the spirit-slaying vital light? Yuan is the origin of the heavens, the central meaning. When the 5-cheese gather in the origin, it means that the 5-cheese take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head, revealing the supreme, divine ability. However, the green-robed Xiao Hua shook his head. I also had the same thought before I took control of my nascent soul and received the baptism of the 5-cheese righteous thunder. However, after witnessing the boundless vitality of a nascent soul under the effects of the 5 elements righteous thunder, I no longer think so. Fellow Taoist, you mean that this yuan is one? Xiao Hua frowned, and his eyes flashed with a 5-colored brilliance. That's right. The green-robed Xiao Hua nodded. From the perspective of my Taoism, it is Tao begets one. Yuan was life. Life and death. This. Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. Rumble. The wind and clouds in the entire space began to violently change. Lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Fellow Taoist, what you said earlier about when the 5-cheese gather in the origin, it means that the 5-cheese take the form of auspicious clouds and condense at the top of the head. Revealing the supreme divine ability was also explained from the perspective of my Taoism's pursuit of divine ability. The green-robed Xiao Hua continued. Fellow Taoist, have you ever thought that all the cultivation paths in this world might not necessarily be the pursuit of divine ability, might not necessarily be the pursuit of power, and might not necessarily be the pursuit of longevity? If all of them were like the Taoism's pursuit of power and bravery, wouldn't this world be simple? Would it not be gorgeous and colorful? Fellow Taoist, think again about that little thunder and the insect eggs under our feet. Why haven't they awakened after the separation of yin and yang? That little thunder also awakened after going out and being bombarded by the 5-cheese righteous thunder, right? Boom! The entire space seemed to have suddenly turned dark, and then suddenly brightened. Xiao Hua cried out involuntarily. Could it be that the path of Confucian cultivation is the path of life? The goal of Confucian cultivation. Then the mystery of the heavenly book is not the divine ability to reach the heavens, but the profound life? Now that Confucian cultivation has given birth to 100 schools of thought, did they all cultivate wrongly? Or were they all misunderstood by others? After they annihilated my Taoism, they envied the power of my Taoism's magic and pursued the effects of magic? If so, then it can explain why the noble spirit has vitality and why Exine can't understand the heavenly book even though he has it. If Confucian cultivation is life, then what about death? Xiao Hua frowned again. Could it be the Buddhist sect? Death? The green-robed Xiao Hua shrugged and laughed. Although the Buddhist sect can interfere with the 6 paths of reincarnation and emphasize reincarnation cultivation, if you say they cultivate the path of death, I don't think so. Only the yin side of the space beneath us has the qualifications to say the word death. Then what is the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation? Xiao Hua didn't understand. The green-robed Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. You have to ask that baldy up there? He recites Buddhist scriptures every day and has already formed a 5th-grade golden lotus. I'm afraid he will soon reach the 9th grade. At that time, even if you don't ask him, Mahavarakana will come to find you and tell you the foundation of the Buddhist sect in person, right? Yes, Xiao Hua understood. The Buddhist scriptures and dharma of the exquisite temple were the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. Moreover, he also knew that the Saraira of the Buddhist sect should be the foundation of the Buddhist sect's cultivation. However, he didn't know what the Saraira was used for. Although the dark clouds are thick in the night, is bleak. The sun and light will always appear. Everything will be revealed one day. Xiaohua raised his head slightly and pointed his finger. The clouds in the sky scattered and the sky opened. It was a sunny day. The green-robed Xiaohua took a deep breath and said with a smile, "This space is still the best. I could do whatever I want. Being in that nascent soul's body is really suffocating." "Fellow Taoist, don't be lazy." Xiaohua stretched and said, "Although our future is bright, we have also provoked a lot of trouble. Lu Yi, Wang Bianfei, Qin Xiaoyao, and the others seem to have a problem with the seal of the spiritual aura sky. We have to hurry up and cultivate." Fine. The green-robed Xiaohua quickly waved his hand. "I was just forced to work by you. I just rested for a moment, and you're noisy again. Why don't you find someone else?" "Who else is there?" Xiaohua smiled bitterly, looked at the sky, and said, "Fellow Taoist, heavenly law is like a dream. I can't find its trace. Fellow Taoist, karma is like a huge monster, never listening to us. Fellow Taoist, soul cultivator specializes in guarding the mysterious dark clouds. Fellow Taoist, Long Mai controls fate and cultivates different from us. Fellow Taoist, Confucian cultivator is now immersed in the five Qis unification and wants to uncover the mystery of Confucian cultivator. Fellow Taoist, Buddhist cultivator. Oh, I'm afraid he can't be called fellow Taoist anymore. He should be bitterly cultivating Buddhist Dharma, wanting to achieve Namo, Maitreya Buddha. Fellow Taoist Phoenix body is free, but he cultivates heavenly law embodiment technique and heavenly body empowerment technique, so he can't enter the space. Fellow Taoist, do you think I can order him around? Moreover, he's also tempering his bones and practicing the Big Dipper magical fist. That light escape technique is the foundation of our cultivation. There are 10 of us. Can we split it? Alas, fellow Taoist, if you knew this, why didn't you split a few more primordial spirits? The green-robed Xiaohua sighed. How would I know that I can't split my primordial spirit after going through the 3 gold, lightning tribulation? Jade Archive, Xiaohua shrugged. I thought that I could split it at will in the future, so I didn't think too much about it. However, now that I think about it, I'm afraid that there will be problems no matter how many primordial spirits there are. Not to mention that the Phoenix Dharma body hasn't returned yet. We recently took in a devil spirit as a little brother. Even that bone-tempering fellow Taoist is somewhat unruly. If we can't get along well in the future, I will be in even greater trouble. Forget it. You can go. The green-robed Xiaohua waved his hand. I know. That is Shan Jun's cultivation method, Jade Talisman refining technique, and especially the teleportation formation you want. I will work hard on it. I won't delay you. After you take out the gold and wood elemental magnetism, you can set up a large formation there. Fellow Taoist, nose, eyes, heart. Jade Archive, Xiaohua smiled and cupped his hands. I will go. Oh, don't worry. Before you go out, take a look at Little Yellow. This little guy seems to have some problems. The green-robed Xiaohua seemed to say casually, cupped his hands, and disappeared. Jade Archive Xiaohua was stunned. He waved his hand and saw Little Yellow appear in front of him. Sure enough, as the green-robed Xiaohua said, Little Yellow was somewhat dispirited. Jade Archive Xiaohua muttered to himself, thinking that when Little Yellow went out, it seemed to be like this. When Jade Archive Xiaohua looked carefully, he didn't see anything wrong with Little Yellow. Little Yellow, Jade Archive Xiaohua said. Mother. At this time, Little Yellow woke up from its absent-minded state and answered in surprise. However, it didn't jump into Jade Archive Xiaohua's arms as lively as before. Instead, it swayed its tail slightly, looking very calm. Are you feeling unwell? Jade Archive Xiaohua said with a smile. If there's anything, feel free to tell Mother. It's nothing. Little Yellow turned its neck in boredom. Boy just feels bored. Bored? What do you mean? Jade Archive Xiaohua didn't understand. Are you feeling uncomfortable at home? Or, Mother, Little Yellow said with some embarrassment. Home is very good. There is nothing uncomfortable, but because it is too comfortable, it is not as exciting as outside. Moreover, Mother is so awe-inspiring outside, able to kill so many bad people, upholding justice, seeing injustice on the road, pulling out a sword to help. Boy can't be like Mother. Jade Archive Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. He looked at Little Yellow in disbelief and asked curiously, "You? Where did you know about Mother? Do you know what upholding justice is? Pulling out a sword to help when seeing injustice on the road?" Mother. Little Yellow swayed its tail and seemed to be smiling. "This is all from Wang Bianfei." "What? Wang Bianfei?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua was even more dumbfounded. When did you see him?" "Oh, not good." Chapter 3550. Suddenly, Jade Archive Xiao Hua seemed to understand something. He sent Wang Bianfei into the space and sealed the space around Wang Bianfei. But he didn't forget what kind of person Wang Bianfei was. He was the most dreamer in the world. In this guy's dream, he seemed to be able to see Little Yellow. In Little Yellow's dream? Thinking for a moment, Jade Archive Xiao Hua lovingly asked, "What do you think?" "Boy wants to leave home and go out to sea," Little Yellow said without hesitation, as if he had been thinking about it for a long time, and now he finally had a chance to say it. However, looking at Little Yellow's pitiful appearance, his little claws slightly clasped together, as if he was afraid of angering Jade Archive Xiao Hua. Jade Archive Xiao Hua didn't get angry. He just remained silent for a long time. He didn't regret sending Wang Bianfei to the space. He just felt a bit of pain in his heart. He was reluctant to part with Wang Bianfei. Jade Archive Xiao Hua had always treated Wang Bianfei as his own child, a child that would never grow up. Naturally, Wang Bianfei hadn't changed much after so many years. However, he didn't expect that this child would finally grow up, spread his wings and fly high, and create his own world. The reluctance in Jade Archive Xiao Hua's heart was the kind of joy and reluctance of a parent. "Mother, don't be angry," Little Yellow whispered. "Boy knows that if Boy isn't here, Mother will definitely miss him. Boy guarantees that Boy is just going out to sea and will be back soon." "AI." Jade Archive Xiao Hua sighed and asked, "What about Little Black? What does he think?" "Little Black, he also wants to go out, but he said he will listen to Mother. Mother doesn't want him to go, so he won't go," Little Yellow honestly replied. He also said that to Boy." "Huh." Jade Archive Xiao Hua laughed. If Little Yellow was a rebellious child, then Little Black was a good boy. So Jade Archive Xiao Hua waved his hand, and Little Black appeared in the air. "Father, you came." Little Black was obviously more lively than Little Yellow, circling around Jade Archive Xiao Hua. "I heard that you also want to leave home and go out to take a look." Xiao Hua extended his hand, and Little Yellow and Little Black both landed in his hand as he lovingly asked. "Yes, Goldie said that the outside world is very interesting. The boy really wants to see it, but Boy should listen to Mother. In fact, it's also very good to stay at home." Little Black was rather straightforward and spoke very quickly. The Jade Archive Xiao Hua nodded and said with a smile, "In the past, it was all Father's fault. Because I loved all of you, I didn't want all of you to come out. Even when Father was in danger, I didn't want all of you to take risks. But you're going to grow up eventually, so it's normal for you to go out and take a look." "All right, I'll listen to Daddy." Little Black seemed to be heartless. Goldie was overjoyed and hurriedly cried out, "Thank you, Mother. Thank you, Mother. Where's Little Silver?" Jade Archive Xiao Hua seemed to think of something and asked, "Little Silver is still young. Why would it leave home?" Little Yellow immediately acted like an elder as he replied. His tone was similar to what Xiao Hua had said to him. Jade Archive Xiao Hua smiled slightly and waved his hand, and Little Silver also appeared in the air. When Little Silver saw Jade Archive Xiao Hua, it immediately stood up in the air and cupped its hands in greeting. It then flew to Little Yellow's side and snuggled up to it. "Little Silver," Jade Archive Xiao Hua asked, "Your mother's going to leave home. Are you going with her?" "Of course." Little Silver's voice was a little low. "What are you going to do?" Little Yellow scolded. You stay at home obediently. It won't be too late to go out when you grow up. Boy should listen to mother. Little Silver was very afraid of Little Yellow. Jade Archive, Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. 3 rejuvenation pills appeared out of thin air, and he said, "The 3 of you, take these." "Yes, mother." "Yes, father." The 3 little things opened their mouths, and the 3 rejuvenation pills immediately fell into their mouths. Watching the 3 little ones take the rejuvenation pills, Jade Archive, Xiao Hua pondered for a moment. He indeed had a lot of treasures, but the 3 little ones couldn't use many of them. Or rather, it could be said that he didn't know what to give them. "Take a rest after taking the pills," Jade Archive, Xiao Hua said. Xiao Hua of the Jade Archive said, "After a few days, Father will send you out and let you see what's going on outside." "Yes, Father." Little Black agreed, very obediently, but there was already some reluctance in his voice. Hearing this, Jade Archive Xiao Hua couldn't help feeling a little sad. He looked at Little Yellow again and saw only excitement. It was likely that its heart had already been set on its way. Xiao Hua's heart had never ached as much as this time when he came out of the space. Sighing, Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and berated, "Wang Bianfei, come here." Master." Wang Bianfei seemed to have never seen Xiao Hua so angry before. His body trembled, and he anxiously said, "What's the matter, disciple?" "Disciple is right beside you." "On the way back from home, what kind of dream did you have?" Xiao Hua asked somewhat angrily. Wang Bianfei was surprised. He really admired Xiao Hua to the point of prostrating himself before him. He actually knew that he had a lot of dreams. "Master." Wang Bianfei didn't dare to hide anything and honestly replied, "Disciple dreamed of a little yellow sable. This little sable could speak human language." He bragged to Disciple, saying that his mother was incomparably powerful and could split heaven and earth. "Master, if this isn't bragging, then what is? Isn't this little sable's mother the old sable? Is it?" Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva, when walking the deep Prajnaparmitha, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering. Sarira, form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. Xiao Hua almost couldn't wait, and in one breath, he recited the Prajnaparmitha Heart Sutra. Wang Bianfei was dumbfounded. How could he understand Buddhist scriptures? At first, he was simply confused, but when he heard form is emptiness, emptiness is form, his face lit up with joy. However, he didn't dare to say anything, fearing that Xiao Hua would be angry. He only waited for Xiao Hua to finish speaking. Then he opened his mouth and said, "Master, it is precisely this." And Xiao Hua let out a long sigh. The anger in his heart seemed to lessen. After a while, Xiao Hua somewhat strangely asked, "This monk has been walking all this time?" "Yes, master, he has been walking all this time, without stopping." Wang Bianfei said with a smile. Disciple asked him how long he had been walking and where he wanted to go, but he didn't answer at all. His eyes were looking straight ahead. This child, Xiao Hua sighed. "Yes," as Wang Bianfei said, "Zhang Luer has already been dead for more than 100 years, and he has been walking all this time. But he has been walking for more than 100 years, His heart is very tired, Master." Wang Bianfei seemed to want to ask something, but he didn't dare to, looking somewhat pitiful. Chapter 35:51. However, at this time, Louis at the side opened his mouth. Master, Bodhisattva Avalokitesvara, when walking the deep Prajnaparmitha, saw that the 5 skandhas were all emptiness, passing through all suffering. Sarira, form is not different from emptiness. Emptiness is not different from form. Form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. The same goes for feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness. Sarira is the emptiness of all dharmas, neither created nor destroyed, neither impure nor clean, neither increasing nor decreasing. Therefore, there is no form in the air, no feelings, thoughts, actions, and consciousness, no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no color, no sound, no smell, no touch, no vision, no realm of consciousness, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, no age, no death, no suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment. Because there is no attainment. Bodhisattva, according to Prajnaparamita, there is no worry in the heart. Am I right? Yes, not bad. Xiaohua was somewhat absent-minded and answered casually, but when he finished, he was dumbfounded again and hurriedly said, Lu, you remember it clearly? Yes, master, I remember it clearly. Lu Yi answered in a low voice, very carefully, as if he was afraid of Xiaohua's anger. Wang Bianfei, what about you? Xiaohua turned his head and asked. Wang Bianfei shook his little head like a rattle drum. My head hurts when I hear this. I can't remember it at all. Ha ha! Xiaohua laughed. Looking at Lu Yi's careful fear, he waved his hand and said, Lu Yi, no need to be afraid. In my eyes, there is no distinction between Taoism and Buddhism. This Prajnaparamita Heart Sutra has already been cultivated by others. You don't have to follow in their footsteps. This old man has some Heart Sutras left behind by Buddhism. Take a look and see which one suits you. This old man will guide your Buddhism cultivation. Thank you, Master. The fear on Lu Yi's face disappeared, and confidence appeared in his eyes again. Master, Wang Bianfei at the side said in surprise. You also know how to chant sutras? Disciple really admires you. I want to uphold justice. I want to help when I see injustice on the road. I want to kill people from 1,000 miles away. How can I not know some Buddhism? Xiaohua rolled his eyes at Wang Bianfei and said in a bad mood. Wang Bianfei stuck out his tongue and hurriedly said with a smile, Yes, yes, Master is right. After pondering for a moment, Xiaohua took out a booklet and handed it to Lu Yi. This is the text used to record the Buddhist scriptures. Take a look. Although there are some Buddhist scriptures written in the language you understand in the hidden immortal continent, they have lost their original meaning. When you understand these words, this old man will show you the Buddhist scriptures. Yes, Master. Lu Yi took it carefully. Xiaohua looked at Wang Bianfei and said, If your senior martial brother doesn't understand, you can give him pointers with all your heart, just like what he taught you that day. Me? Wang Bianfei was stunned and didn't understand what he meant. However, when he received the scroll, he immediately smiled and said, Senior brother, don't worry. I understand all of this. I can teach it to you right now. Thank you, junior martial brother. Lu Yi was overjoyed. Looking at Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei supporting each other, Xiaohua smiled. In fact, the Buddhist sect's sutras emphasized nothing. What they pursued was to smile while picking up flowers. Xiaohua's Buddha Saraira could also do this. However, Xiaohua felt that letting Lu Yi slowly comprehend the sutras by himself and let the two brothers deepen their relationship would be better than just using his finger. As the saying goes, teaching is easy, but cultivating is difficult. Isn't it exactly like this? Although Qianyu Mountain's name has the word yu, in fact, it has nothing to do with jade. Even the pitch-black stone wall flickering with a faint phosphorescent light and black gas. Even in the daytime, it gave birth to a kind of cold and eerie feeling. Not to mention that it was already night. Although there was a crescent moon in the sky, the moonlight couldn't make Qianyu Mountain give birth to the color of jade, no matter what. Qianyu Mountain was also not an ordinary mountain peak. It was only a special place in a mountain range. This mountain range was normal. There were trees and water. However, at Qianyu Mountain, pitch-black poisonous water seeped out from the mountain rocks. This black water was incomparably stinky and corrosive. Not to mention bones, even ordinary stones would be turned into nothingness if thrown in. This black water that seeped out condensed into a pool at the bottom of the mountain. It was about several mu in size. Qianyu Mountain soared into the sky from this pool, separated from the mountain range by this indescribable black water. Qianyu Mountain was not only pitch black on the surface, but the mountain was even more precipitous. From the bottom of the mountain to the top, there was no mountain path at all. It was like the whole mountain was made of iron and stone. In the entire mountain, there was only a cave at the waist of the mountain that led to the outside. In front of that cave, there was a long chain bridge. Only when this several zhang long chain bridge stretched out could one walk from the chain bridge to the stone cliff opposite Qianyu Mountain. Below the chain bridge was naturally the indescribable black water. In fact, not to mention the fact that Qianyu Mountain had no mountain path. Even if there was one, no one would be able to walk from the bottom of the mountain to the top through the stinky black water. This dangerous Qianyu Mountain was the best place to imprison criminals. All of the heinous criminals in Copper Pillar Country were imprisoned in Qianyu Mountain. Because of this, Qianyu Mountain's reputation spread far and wide. Outsiders only remembered Qianyu Mountain and ignored the name of the entire mountain range. At this moment, the night was quiet. This was the case in Copper Pillar Country and even more so in the surrounding mountains. The infamous Front Jade Mountain also became more and more desolate. From time to time, the howls of evil beasts could be heard. Occasionally, there would be screams coming from within the Front Jade Mountain. Other than these sounds, there were also some strange noises. People couldn't help but think of the souls of the dead who died here. They couldn't help but feel their hair stand on end. Who would come here at night? However, just a few li away from Qianyu Mountain was a mountain forest that wasn't very tall. At this moment, the forest was very quiet. When a mountain wind blew, there were actually many black shadows crawling between the rocks. These black shadows couldn't be seen from a distance and could only be faintly seen when the faint starlight fell from the sky. Roughly counting these black shadows, there were at least a few hundred people. At the edge of the mountain forest, there was a protruding mountain rock. Behind the mountain rock, there were several people. These people's eyes were bright as they looked in this direction. Although no one said anything, the slight uneasiness in their eyes revealed the anxiety in their hearts. The wind blew gently, lifting everyone's clothes. A slightly old voice sounded. "Young Master Zhu, today is a little strange. It seems a little different from what young Master said." The voice came from a white-haired old man at the front. Senior Dao Hong. Is there something different here?" A voice sounded. This voice came from a young master beside the old man. Although it was nighttime, he was still wearing a brocade robe. He was the undecided scholar that Xiao Hua met at the city gate of the Bronze Pillar Country. This young master Zhu paused for a moment and explained as if he was reading a book. Qianyu Mountain is guarded by General Mo of the Bronze Pillar Country. General Mo's strength is at the 3rd grade of elemental energy. Among the generals of the Bronze Pillar Country, he is considered to be above average. Accompanying General Mo to guard Qianyu Mountain is the Mo army under his command. There are about 6,000 people, and they are all outstanding soldiers of the Bronze Pillar Country. General Mo has 6 deputy generals. Of these 6 deputy generals, 4 of them are guarding the surroundings of Qianyu Mountain. The other 2 are leading 2,000 soldiers to guard the mountain range in front of Qianyu Mountain. This is the army camp that we saw in front of us. According to the information I received, there are 4,000 soldiers guarding Qianyu Mountain. They're divided into 3 groups. Young Master Zhu still wanted to say more. The old man waved his hand and said, "Young Master Zhu, there is no need to say more. This old man already knows all of this. The information that you said is the usual arrangement. Didn't you see it? Right now, there's so many tents in the army camp. How is it the scale of 2,000 people? If it is 4,000 people, it would be more than that." Young Master Zhu was a little hesitant. He looked into the distance and said honestly, "Senior, this junior can't see it. And it's fine if he can't see it." The old man named Dao Hong nodded. "Tonight is a little inappropriate. In this old man's opinion, why don't we turn back tonight? We can talk about it when we have the chance in the future." And Senior is right. The Bronze Pillar Country's capital has suddenly increased its security. This really caught this junior off guard, and I almost couldn't enter the city to pay my respects to Senior. Young Master Zhu was always someone who didn't have his own opinions. Once he heard the old man's words, he immediately agreed. But before young Master Zhu's words landed, an old man beside him said unhappily, "Young Master, Old Master has been captured by the king of Bronze Pillar Country for more than a year. Right now, we don't know if he is alive or dead. Our spies in Chinyu Mountain can't even see Old Master. If we wait any longer, I fear it will be disadvantageous to Old Master. Ouch! Right at this moment, a faint scream came from several kilometers away. Young Master Zhu's body trembled, and he echoed, "That's right, Senior Dao Hong. We don't have many chances. The longer we delay, the more difficult it is to guarantee my father's safety. Why don't we barge in tonight? That Min-Mo general is only at the first tier of the 3rd grade of elemental energy, 1 grade lower than you." Dao Hong sighed and said with a grimace, "This old man only coveted young Master's golden core method. Today, I fear that I will really lose my life here. Didn't young Master say earlier? News of Bronze Pillar Country has spread like wildfire recently. Imperial Preceptor Lung Chinga died in Black Cloud Ridge. Jiang Country's Chongling Princess raised her flag next to Bronze Pillar Country. How can Bronze Pillar Country not increase their security at Chinyu Mountain? It does not matter if this old man dies here, but young Master Zhu does not value your own life." This senior's words are reasonable. Young Master Zhu was out of ideas again. He said with a frown, "This is the most sensitive time for Bronze Pillar Country. If we rashly, young Master, you are so smart all your life, but stupid this time." The old man beside him almost jumped up. He looked like he expected better from young Master Zhu. He suppressed his anger and said in a low voice, "It is because Bronze Pillar Country is at its most critical time that their attention will be on Black Cloud Ridge, the capital, and Jiang Country. They will not pay attention to Chinyu Mountain. Only now is the best time for us to enter Chinyu Mountain and rescue Old Master." Chapter 3552. That's right, Senior Xian is right. Young Master Zhu immediately changed his mind. Now that the Bronze Pillar Nation isn't paying attention to the Chinyu Mountain, it's the most advantageous place for us. Senior Dao Hong, I felt that the increase in soldiers you mentioned was a bit strange, but now that I think about it, I'm afraid they sent more soldiers to guard the mountain because General Mo returned to the Bronze Pillar Nation, right? It should be a trick to deceive everyone. Moreover, these soldiers are no more than ants in your eyes. Why do you care? Fellow immortal Dao Hong, that Senior Xian couldn't help but say, "We'll attract the attention of the Bronze Pillar Nation soldiers." Fellow immortal, you can use your divine ability to enter the Chinyu Mountain. Fellow immortal, don't worry, the map drawn by the soldiers we bribed at the Chinyu Mountain is definitely correct. As long as you save my master, not only will we immediately give you the primeval stones you promised, we'll also give you the half of the golden core cultivation method. All right, Dao Hong thought for a moment, then clenched his teeth and said, "I'll do it now." However, what we discussed before was the arrangement of General Mo at the Chinyu Mountain. I'm afraid he's not here now. There's no need for you to attract the attention of the soldiers around the Chinyu Mountain, because this will only make them more vigilant. Why don't you all follow me into the Chinyu Mountain and see who can find Master Zhu first? Although your Zhu clan has declined, you still have the foundation of an aristocratic family. I don't think you'll care about these soldiers, right? This young Master Zhu bit his lip, not knowing how to answer. He looked at Senior Xian for help. Senior Xian glanced at Dao Hong, then at the dozens of men surrounding him, and even the hundreds of people in the distance who couldn't be seen clearly. He nodded and said, "All right. In fact, if it wasn't for the fact that General Mo might discover our whereabouts before we enter the Chinyu Mountain, we would have attacked long ago. Now that General Mo might not be at the Chinyu Mountain, we naturally have nothing to fear. All right, we'll do as fellow immortal says. We'll do it now," Dao Hong said as he took out a yellow talisman from his small Chinquan pouch. Young Master Zhu nodded and said, "Yes, Senior, please use your divine ability. We'll be there soon." Young Master Zhu said. Dao Hong channeled his mana, and a faint light flashed. Dao Hong placed the yellow talisman on his body. As the light flashed, Dao Hong's figure gradually disappeared. After a moment, Dao Hong's voice came from a few feet away. I'll be leaving first. You can come over as well. Elder Xian, young Master Zhu bit his lip. The paleness of his face could be seen clearly in the night. He looked at the elder and said, since we have already made an agreement with Senior Dao Hong, then we must keep our promise. Elder, please arrange for people to follow the third method we discussed earlier, young master. Elder Xian revealed a benevolent smile and patted young Master Zhu's shoulder. He said meaningfully, young master took the risk to go to Bronze Pillar Country and met with fellow immortal Daoang at Star Picking Towers auction. After that, young master took the risk to enter the capital of Bronze Pillar Country and asked fellow immortal Daoang to come out and help. These two great achievements were not something that could be accomplished by others. Now that we have to go deep into the Qinyu Mountain to rescue Old Master, as the one who planned this, there's no need for young master to personally attend to everything. You can stay here to support us and at the same time provide support. If there are any abnormalities, young master can inform us in time. Elder Xian, young Master Zhu frowned. When Elder Xian moved, the family guard around him moved as well. The guards waved their hands and passed down the order. In a short while, hundreds of people flew into the air. Some of them even used lightness techniques and pounced toward the black monster-like Qinyu Mountain in the distance. Jin, do you think Elder Xian and the others will be fine? Young Master Zhu was clearly worried. Seeing that the distance had already returned to peace, with only the night, the wind, and the occasional beast roar, he was truly absent-minded as he asked in a low voice. Don't worry, young master. Zhu Jian was indeed somewhat unwilling, but he suppressed the hot blood in his heart and said in a low voice, Elder Xian and young master have thoroughly studied Qinyu Mountain. Everyone has also discussed this large-scale invasion many times. There definitely won't be any mistakes. Moreover, young master has even invited a Taoist expert. Old master will definitely be rescued. But I still feel uneasy. Young Master Zhu was on the verge of tears. There are suddenly so many tents in Qinyu Mountain. Why do they strengthen the defense? Then, that damn Taoist cultivator from Black Cloud Ridge, why didn't they wait a few more days to kill the state preceptor of the Bronze Pillar State? When Elder Xian rescues father, he can do whatever he wants. He won't block our way like this. What could Zhu Jian say? He smiled apologetically. I heard from Qingyu that young master met a Taoist expert outside the Bronze Pillar State. It would be great if young master could chat with him more. Sigh. Young Master Zhu sighed. His eyes were somewhat lost. That person is like a dragon or phoenix among men. When he looks around, it seems like the entire world is in his control. How could I possibly be acquainted with him? Now that I think about it. Just as young Master Zhu was reminiscing, a blood-curdling scream suddenly sounded from afar. Although it was several miles away, it traveled extremely far in this cold and silent night. Young Master Zhu didn't care at first. After all, Qinyu Mountain wouldn't be called Qinyu Mountain if it didn't hear screams. However, when he saw thousands of torches light up within several miles, and hundreds of flickering lanterns floating in the air, how could he not know that something had gone wrong? His body couldn't help but tremble. Unfortunately, before he could use the eye-clearing technique to look into the distance, the sound of immortals slaying crossbows and god-slaying bows piercing through the air could be heard. One after another, blood-curdling screams could be heard as the torches flashed. Oh no! Young Master Zhu turned pale with fright. A faint light flashed in his eyes as he looked into the distance. Senior Xian's shock was even greater than young Master Zhu's. He floated in front of the crowd and saw that there were twice as many tents as he had imagined. One after another, they blocked the path to the front of the Jade Mountain. However, at this point, where was there any way out? He could only hold his breath and concentrate on minimizing the commotion. He also believed that the Zhu family elites he brought with him were definitely stronger than the ordinary soldiers of the Copper Pillar State. They would definitely be able to reach the front of Qian Yushan without making a sound. Of course, he didn't have much confidence in dealing with a Nightmare MO army that was defending Qinyu Mountain. Moreover, he didn't plan to have much confidence. His people were originally Dao Hong's cover. As long as they could attract the attention of the Nightmare Mo army and allow Dao Hong to rescue his master, the death of several hundred people was nothing. Unfortunately, Elder Xian was still too optimistic. He had just carefully passed through a few alliances when there was a commotion behind him. Enemy attack, enemy attack. A loud bugle horn sounded from the left. Then, the lit bonfires appeared one after another. From the tents, groups of soldiers wearing black armor rushed out with weapons in their hands. In just a moment, the entire camp was filled with soldiers in formation. Elder Xian almost rubbed his eyes. These soldiers seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Moreover, these soldiers' armor was pitch black and carried a thick blood shadow. An indescribable, murderous aura was emitted from the formation. Heavens! Elder Xian almost groaned. Isn't this the black-armored army? How did they move from the front lines to Qinyu Mountain? Could it be Qinyu Mountain? Suddenly, Elder Xian had an ominous feeling. It was as if today was definitely not the best day to rescue his master. Elder Xian's ominous feeling was still too optimistic. After the Black Armor Army formed a formation, they didn't wave their weapons to block their path and fight with them, as old Xian had expected. Instead, they threw the spears in their hands and formed groups of several people. The person in the middle raised his hand and flashed with a faint clear light. Similarly, an immortal extermination crossbow appeared above their heads. Without waiting for old Xian and the others to react, arrows carrying a dense immortal extermination aura whistled through the air and flew toward them. Chapter 35:53. The immortal slaying crossbow used by the soldiers of the Bronze Pillar State was a sharp weapon used by Confucian cultivators against the Taoist sect. Even the well-trained Taoist soldiers of the Taoist sect would not be able to withstand it, let alone the family generals of the Confucian aristocratic families. Once they came into contact with the crossbow, from the initial scream, the heart-wrenching howls could be heard incessantly. The family generals of the Zhu family really did not want to scream, but the immortal slaying crossbow was too overbearing. When the arrow flew past, it definitely pierced through their bodies and came out of their backs with flesh and blood. The absolute pain was truly heart-wrenching. They had no choice but to open their mouths. Boom! Elder Xian was stunned, but he felt a gust of wind roaring in front of him. He hurriedly looked up and saw a black shadow with hundreds of inscriptions in it. They seemed to be chasing after his life. As it roared, it had already rushed in front of his face. Elder Xian opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of genuine qi. Several streams of noble qi blasted down at the same time. It was like a giant hand blocking in front of him, barely pulling the arrow away. Whoosh! With a soft sound, the immortal slaying crossbow flew past Elder Xian's ear, and a few strands of his white hair fell to the ground. How can they rush into the Jade Mountain? Elder Xian had already weighed the pros and cons in a moment. He knew that it was impossible to rush through the alliance in this situation, so he hurriedly ordered a retreat. However, the urgency of the situation was far beyond his imagination. Clang! A golden sound came from about 100 feet below him. The sound was so resounding and so frightening. A gust of wind appeared out of nowhere. Elder Xian's noble qi was instantly sucked out of his body. A kind of coldness and an ice demon pounced from under his feet like a ferocious beast. God-slaying Bao. Elder Xian's heart immediately turned cold. He had long heard of the weapon used by the Bronze Pillar State to deal with the Taoist generals of the Taoist sect, but he had never thought that one day he would face it alone. Elder Xian's genuine qi was forced to solidify by the god slaying Bao's ferociousness. He felt his bones and tendons go numb, and an irresistible fear rose in his heart. Before he could wave his weapon or take out his scroll and other things, a cold light flashed in the night sky. A 3-meter-long arrow pierced Elder Xian's heart with lightning speed. Elder Xian's body was like a doll. He was sent flying dozens of feet before he landed in an arc in the distance. Boom! The sound came from being nailed to an ancient tree. The ancient tree trembled, and many leaves fell. The old and hunched figure curled up into a ball, and blood flowed out of his mouth like a fountain. He lifted his grayish-white eyes with great difficulty to look in young Master Zhu's direction. Then he immediately closed his eyes, and his entire body was nailed to the ancient tree. Roar! Roar! In the distance, Elder Xian faced dozens of black armor soldiers who were shouting slogans. Their genuine chi was activated as they worked together to control a crossbow that was dozens of feet long. The crossbow was pitch black, and the thousands of inscriptions on it flashed blood red. It flowed even more violently than the blood on Elder Xian's chest. Boom, boom, boom. A total of 3 similar god-slaying bows roared from the rocks near Qinyu Mountain. 3 arrows as thick as a child's arm shot into the air. A faint light flashed, and strings of blood splattered. Dao Hong covered his left shoulder and revealed himself in the air. There was a look of disbelief in his eyes. He could not believe that his invisibility talisman had been seen through by the Confucian cultivator, Taoist remnant. Behind him, at the edge of the camp, a burly general dressed in battle armor and riding a pitch-black steed appeared. The general roared, "I've been waiting for you here for a long time. My sons, kill." General Hao who? How is this possible? Dao Hong seemed to be very familiar with the generals of the Bronze Pillar country. He almost blurted it out. He really did not expect that General Hao Hu, one of the 3 great generals of the Bronze Pillar country, would personally come to Qinyu Mountain to guard it. A sense of dizziness, as if he had fallen into an abyss, instantly arose from the bottom of Dao Hong's heart. However, the difficulty of the situation was beyond Dao Hong's expectations. Clang, clang, clang. At the same time, the sound of the god slaying bows rang out behind him, where Qinyu Mountain was surrounded by black water. In an instant, goosebumps appeared all over Dao Hong's body. Almost without hesitation, he slapped his hand on the top of his head, and a bronze ring flew out. The ring buzzed as it flew out. Rays of bronze luster appeared from the ring and covered Dao Hong's body in the air. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as the luster fell, 3 arrows rushed to Dao Hong's side. In the loud roar, thousands of inscriptions appeared between the arrows and the ring. The bronze luster turned into fist-sized bubbles, which then burst like ants. Wisps of noble spirit, sharper than knives, pierced into the luster and tore it into pieces. Then, the 3 flying arrows rushed into the ring. Fortunately, after being blocked by Dao Hong's magical weapon, the 3 flying arrows had lost a lot of their strength. Dao Hong was still agile and managed to dodge the god-slaying bows in a flash. Having narrowly escaped death, Dao Hong no longer dared to fly in the air. His body descended rapidly like a falling meteor. Before his body could land on the ground, boom, boom. Several beams of light shot out from the halo and struck 4 to 5 soldiers who were activating the immortal extermination crossbows. How could these soldiers be a match for Dao Hong? In an instant, they were turned into minced meat and scattered all over the ground. Damn it! Seeing that Dao Hong had killed several black-armored soldiers and was about to enter the camp, General Hao, who was enraged. With a furious roar, he leapt up from his black horse. Stepping on a cloud, he charged towards Dao Hong like a ferocious tiger. While General Hao, who was still in the air, his fists and legs were already dancing. Wisps of noble spirit fell, and the wind from his fists whistled. The soldiers who couldn't dodge in time were blown into the air. The tents beside the soldiers were instantly torn into pieces. Before Dao Hong could hide into the crowd, he hastily formed an incantation gesture. Amidst the vibrating sound of the bronze brilliance, a huge shadow flew out and charged towards General Hao Hu. It collided with the wind generated by General Hao Hu's fist. Boom! A powerful force spread in all directions. The soldiers several dozen feet to the left were sent flying. The immortal execution crossbows that had just been set up were also scattered by the impact. Woo-woo! While Dao Hong was still rolling in the air, two more god-slaying bows came at him. Dao Hong knew that his protective golden light couldn't block the god-slaying bows. As he lost his balance, he immediately broke the tip of his tongue and spat a mouthful of essence blood on the bronze bracelet. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The bronze bracelet's luster soared into the sky like a waterfall. While protecting Dao Hong, it blocked the two flying arrows. Oomph! General Hao Hu, who was in the air, let out a cold snort. His feet swept across the air. His palms shook slightly as though he was drawing an inscription in front of his chest. A gust of noble spirit wind rose again. A tiger-shaped shadow actually rushed out from the gust of wind and rushed toward Dao Hong with a roar. Condensed chi into form. Looking at this tiger-shaped shadow, Dao Hong's heart sank to the bottom. He knew that General Hao, who had probably reached the pinnacle of the 3rd grade of Essence Force, or even the 4th grade, he wasn't someone that he could withstand. Woo 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 woo. Just as Dao Hong's heart was trembling, 8 god-slaying bows sounded at the same time. The Black Armored Army had unknowingly formed a formation around Dao Hong. The murderous flying arrows flickered with a chilling light that was darker than the dark night. They flew toward Dao Hong from all directions. Seeing this, Dao Hong's expression changed greatly. He suddenly soared into the sky. However, the god-slaying bows were too fast. He had only moved a few feet when the flying arrows had already reached him. Explode! Dao Hong clenched his teeth and suddenly formed a seal. The bronze bracelet's luster was abnormally bright. Boom! A loud sound was heard. Air currents gushed out like a fountain in all directions. The 8 god-slaying bows were actually blocked by Dao Hong. Unfortunately, just as Dao Hong was about to explode his treasures, General Hao, whose tiger-shaped flying shadow had already arrived above his head. Although there was no stench coming from the mouth of the tiger, there was an aura of extermination. Dao Hong could no longer dodge. Puff! Dao Hong's face turned ferocious. He opened his mouth, and a golden core that was smaller than a thumb rushed out. Woo! A violent wind blew, and the golden core suddenly expanded. Dao Hong actually wanted to explode his golden core and perish together with General Hao Hu. Oomph! Boring. General Hao Hu sneered. The tiger-shaped flying shadow opened its mouth and swallowed the golden core. Boom! A loud sound was heard. The golden core exploded and the tiger-shaped flying shadow exploded into pieces. Even General Hao Hu's body was thrown back half a foot, not to mention the deep pit that was several feet in size on the ground below him. After the rumbling, a blood-curdling scream was heard. 2 god-slaying bows shot out from the darkness like sickles. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but one of the bows pierced into Dao Hong's left cheek and the other into his heart. Dao Hong, who had already used up all of his tricks, was killed by the Black Armored Army before he could put up any resistance. Dao Hong was already a cultivator in the middle stage of the Gold Core realm. He could be considered a Taoist expert. If he were to fight General Hao Hu alone, he would have no chance of winning. However, it was not impossible for him to escape. However, after he was injured by the god-slaying bows, he lost all his courage. He did not dare to challenge General Hao Hu and could only escape. Unfortunately, the god-slaying bows and the immortal-slaying crossbows were targeted at Taoist disciples. Regardless of speed or force, they could break through Taoist spells. Under such circumstances, how could Dao Hong possibly escape? Senior Xian. In the distant night, young Master Zhu heard the continuous screams. Although he could not see much with the art of clear eyes, how could he not know the miserable situation of the others when he heard the sounds of the immortal slaying crossbows and the god-slaying bows? He groaned and tears fell from his eyes. He knew more clearly than ever that Senior Xian's painstaking efforts were as heavy as a mountain. If it was not for Senior Xian's obstruction, he would have been killed by the bows and arrows. Not a single trace of killing intent could escape from the lightning. All of you moved to the side. Xiao Hua smiled coldly. He slapped his hand on the top of his head. Boom! Under the moonlight, golden light flashed. A nascent soul hand of several acres in size appeared out of thin air, grabbing toward the army camp below. General Hao, whose face was ashen. He had already heard Northern Gua Institute chief's description. He had already thought that Xiao Hua's strength was extraordinary. However, he still didn't truly estimate Xiao Hua's strength. He still threw Northern Gua Institute chief's warning aside. He really didn't have the strength to stop Xiao Hua. However, since it had already come to this, there was no reason to retreat. General Hao Hu roared, "Kill!" The wind from the fist moved again. A tiger-shaped pillar of vast chi once again charged towards the gigantic palm that was descending from the sky. Boom! The pillar of vast chi rumbled and blasted a hole in the giant palm. The tiger-shaped flying shadow also disappeared, but the hand of a nascent soul was not stopped. In the barracks where thousands of black armored soldiers were resting, hundreds of immortal execution crossbows and god-slaying bows were destroyed by Xiao Hua as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. When the giant hand grabbed the entire barracks disappeared, as if the black armored soldiers were stripped naked of their armor. Seeing the gigantic golden hand turn in midair, the golden light disappeared. The entire army camp's military supplies also disappeared. General Hao Hu roared loudly. His body expanded by 2 zhang. The long spear in his hand whistled as it pounced toward Xiao Hua, who was standing in midair with a smile, even more ferocious than the huge python. "You little brat, why are you arguing with this old man?" Xiao Hua began to show off. Even Lung Qingge wasn't this old man's opponent. "Who do you think you are? If I took your life, it would make this old man seem ungentlemanly. If I don't take your life, why are you so noisy? Fine, fine, fine. Let's see if you can take this old man's staff." As he spoke, Xiao Hua grabbed in midair, and the wishful steel staff appeared. "Grow, grow, grow." Xiao Hua shouted a few times. The wishful steel staff grew to 2 zhang. Xiao Hua only needed to slightly wave it, and the wishful steel staff smashed down like a mountain. Woo! Just a deafening whistling sound made General Hao Hu's body stagnate. Ha! The wishful steel staff accurately hit the python's head. With a loud bang, the long spear fell from General Hao Hu's hand as if it was struck by lightning. The entire long spear was smashed into 2 pieces. Kill! General Hao Hu's arms were numb, but his fighting spirit didn't decrease. With a roar, the tiger-shaped shadow appeared in his fists again. The vast chi rushed out again. Who knew that Xiao Hua didn't dodge at all, nor did he use any magic power to cast any Dao arts. Xiao Hua's figure suddenly turned illusory, like a gust of wind. He floated in front of General Hao Hu in the blink of an eye. With a wave of his right arm, he clenched his right fist and smashed it into the mouth of the tiger-shaped shadow. Boom! With a clear sound, the tiger-shaped shadow shattered. The vast chi also scattered in all directions. Xiao Hua's fist impressively appeared in front of General Hao Hu's chest. General Hao Hu looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief. He absolutely didn't dare to believe that a Dao sect cultivator's punches and kicks were more powerful than him, a martial grandmaster from the school of the military. Looking at the black armor in front of his chest that had been tempered thousands of times by Xiao Hua's fist, General Hao Hu spat out a mouthful of black blood, and his entire body fell from midair. Plop. Smoke and dust flew in all directions as General Hao Hu fell to the ground. He struggled a few times, but couldn't get up. However, under the shattered black armor, his violently heaving chest showed that Xiao Hua didn't have any intention of taking his life. "All of you step down." Xiao Hua waved his hand, looked around, and said indifferently, "You all are not my match. I know that you all have military orders, so I won't take your lives. Your opponents are my Jiang country's Dao soldiers. If anyone dares to take half a step forward, I will definitely kill them." The thousands of black armored armies killing intent disappeared. They looked at Xiao Hua blankly and didn't know what to do. The 100 or so people closest to General Hao Hu unconsciously looked at him. "You, All of you, listen to my orders. General Hao, who stood up from the ground with difficulty. His face was pale as he looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing in midair with a golden light flashing around his body. He knew that this was Xiao Hua's benevolence, and if he gave the order, it would only increase the casualties. Thus, he raised his hand and said, "Discard your weapons and sit on the ground." Yes. The soldiers felt relieved as they placed their weapons on the ground and sat down obediently. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, no longer paying attention to General Hao, who. Auspicious clouds appeared beneath his feet, carrying Xiao Hua towards the Jade Mountain. Creak, creak. Xiao Hua had only flown a few meters when he heard a rough sound coming from the Jade Mountain in front of him. Then, the entire top of the Jade Mountain, as well as the entrance of the Jade Mountain, suddenly shone brightly. On the stone wall, an unknown stone gave off a brilliance that seemed to be made of Ming Hua stone, illuminating everything in front of Xiao Hua. Following the creaking sound, a chain bridge slowly extended out from the cave. On top of the chain bridge, there were two old men who were over 70 years old. The two of them were dressed in simple clothes, and their faces were clear and arrogant. Seeing that, Xiao Hua did not fly forward. He simply descended from the sky and stood at the edge of the stone cliff, watching indifferently. I didn't expect Taoist Master Xiao to be so magnanimous. No wonder Bei Wuzhiming praised him so much. Without waiting for the chain bridge to reach into the cliff, the old man in front cupped his hands and bowed, and said, "Since that's the case, this old man can't hide behind the chain bridge and do any dirty tricks." This old man is the Prime Minister of the Copper Pillar Country, Yanji Jin. Prime Minister? Xiao Hua frowned, raised his hand to return the greeting, and said indifferently, "This old man heard that as long as the state teacher is killed, all grudges will be decided on the battlefield. What's the matter with your Copper Pillar Country? This old man killed a state teacher. Why did a general and a prime minister come out? Could it be that you want to force this old man to make a move against your Copper Pillar Country?" "Bastard!" Yanji Jin did not speak, but the old man behind him scolded, "Easily exterminating a country, quietly killing people, the entire hidden immortal continent is in a mess because of your Taoist sects. Since you want to establish a country, then establish a country. Why do you need to take the imperial jade seal of our Confucian cultivators? Quickly hand over the imperial jade seal, seeing that you still have mercy in your heart. This old man can spare your life." "Good. You really scared this old man to death." Xiao Hua laughed. "Who are you, old man?" "This old man is Jean Rushui." The old man said word by word, his face full of arrogance. "Oh." Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows. He did not know who this old man was, but in the distance, young Master Zhu, who wanted to leave but did not dare to, had already used the clear eyes technique to see clearly. He said in a low voice, "Copper Pillar Country, why did you invite this old man here?" "Taoist Xiao, I'm afraid you're in trouble." Chapter 35:55. Yanji Jin opened his mouth again. "Taoist Xiao, if you had only killed Lung Chinga, I would not have caused you any more trouble. Everything could have been settled on the battlefield. However, not only did you barge in my territory, you also took the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal. Naturally, we cannot just settle this with you on the battlefield. Jean Rushui, old Master Jean Rushui, is a renowned great-grandmaster among us Confucian cultivators. His simple and honest reputation is revered by all. He has heard of your atrocities and has specially come to Qianyu Mountain to help this old man retrieve the Imperial Jade Seal. If you take out the Imperial Jade Seal, Qianyu Mountain will retreat and everything will be fine. We will decide who is superior and inferior on the battlefield." Imperial Jade Seal? Xiao Hua was stunned and looked at Yanji Jin in confusion. He had already given the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal to Do Shan Jun. However, who was Do Shan Jun? Although he hid his Taoist identity in the Copper Pillar Academy, how would Xiao Hua know who he was going to give the Imperial Jade Seal to? From Yanji Jin's words, even if Do Shan Jun gave the Imperial Jade Seal to the Copper Pillar Academy, the Copper Pillar Academy might not announce it. With the 5-dragon Imperial Jade Seal as bait, many Confucian cultivators would come to help the Copper Pillar Academy. How could the Copper Pillar Academy reject such a good deal? Haha. As the saying goes, if you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Xiao Hua laughed. I have already given the Imperial Jade Seal to the governor of the Imperial Academy to bring back to the Copper Pillar Academy. If you want it, you can go find him. Of course, I can imagine. Even if the governor gave the Imperial Jade Seal to the Copper Pillar Academy, Prime Minister Yin might not admit it. Oh, the governor of the Copper Pillar Academy, Do Shanjun? Yin Jijin frowned slightly and glanced at Jean Rouchouet beside him. He shook his head and said, I only know of this person and am not familiar with him. Furthermore, I have never heard of the Imperial Academy returning the Imperial Jade Seal to the palace. Haha, rascal, what's the point of saying such baseless things now? Jean Rouchouet laughed and pointed at Xiao Hua. Even if you really returned the Imperial Jade Seal, what are you doing now? This is the prison of the Bronze Pillar Country. You keep saying that you want to use your Dao soldiers against the soldiers of the Bronze Pillar Country. Why are you using your martial arts to break the law? My hidden immortal continent is governed by Confucian cultivators, unlike your Dao sect's lax rule. This old man is not talented, but I am willing to face the tyranny of your Dao sect as an ordinary Confucian cultivator and return the public courtesy of our Confucian cultivators. Although chivalrous men use martial arts to violate the laws of Confucianism, aren't they also using literature to violate the laws? Xiao Hua sneered. You keep talking about laws and etiquette, yet you're only a tiny Confucian cultivator. What qualifications do you have to represent the hidden immortal continent? You're only qualified to represent yourself. You're just trying to find a reason for your actions. Since that's the case, let's fight. After he finished speaking, Xiao Hua's body flashed with golden light. There was some anger in his eyes. He swept his gaze over Yin Jijin and Jean Rouchouet and said, facing the 5 brocade cloud paintings, this old man is not afraid, let alone you 2 old men. You really think too highly of yourself. How can we join hands to fight against the enemy? Yin Jijin snorted coldly and took a few steps back. He raised his voice and said, we'll be relying on old Master Jean for this battle, teaching the younger generation a lesson. This old man won't fall behind. Jean Rouchouet laughed loudly and also took a few steps forward. His gaze was like lightning as he looked at Xiao Hua. His previous old appearance was swept away. Old Master. Xiao Hua looked at Jean Rouchouet's somewhat trembling appearance and sneered. If we're talking, this Xiao may not be your opponent. But if we fight, this Xiao advises you to retreat. You haven't even cultivated true qi. How can you be this Zhao's opponent? Who would have thought that Jean Rouchouet's eyes slanted at Xiao Hua and said indifferently, who said that one must cultivate true qi to kill the enemy? Have you never heard that if one has talent, a poem can kill the enemy, a painting can also kill the monarch? A scholar can pacify the world with an essay? Never heard of it. Xiao Hua smiled faintly. But suddenly, Xiao Hua sucked in a breath of cold air. He suddenly remembered what Fu Jiwen said at the auction at Jiaxing Lu. He couldn't help but size up the seemingly arrogant Jean Rouchouet. Good. Today this old man will let you see what it means to be a great scholar, to criticize in speech and in writing, to set the world in writing, to be a scholar in his 70s, to have a sharp tongue, and to correct the laws of the court. Jean Rouchouet roared and opened his mouth. He shouted, the awe-inspiring qi, the spirit of man, the style of writing for 10,000 years. Listen to my command, fight, fight, fight. Following Jean Rouchouet's 3 roars, the entire Jade Mountain immediately surged with wind and clouds. Not only did the awe-inspiring qi within several miles surge over like a tidal wave, even the silent, awe-inspiring qi in the void seemed to listen to Jean Rouchouet's command, tearing through the void and rushing in. It was to the extent that when the righteous qi was mobilized, a chilling intent was born from the heavens and the earth. Sounds like war drums and bugles were heard from the left and right. In an instant, Xiao Hua had the illusion that he was being attacked by an army of thousands of men and horses. This, Xiao Hua was a little startled. He had fought against more than one or two Confucian cultivators, but he had never encountered such a strange phenomenon. However, the development of the situation was beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. The awe-inspiring qi was far from simple. Following the sound of the bugles, there was the sound of the drums. On the entire Jade Mountain, countless awe-inspiring qi seemed to have a spirit and rushed toward Xiao Hua like thousands of soldiers and horses. The awe-inspiring qi's sharpness actually cut through the void, producing a shrill sound. This was different from Lung Chinga's golden spear. There was no specific image, only an ancient killing intent. This killing intent was so bleak that, not to mention the falling leaves within several miles, even Xiao Hua felt a burst of coldness. Boom, boom, boom. Not only that, but above Xiao Hua's head, there were hundreds of awe-inspiring qi pillars that pierced through the sky and directly fell toward Xiao Hua. The solemn killing intent enveloped Xiao Hua within 100 feet. It's hard to imagine. Xiao Hua sighed. This world is really too mysterious. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, how could I have imagined that the seemingly defenseless old Confucian cultivator would actually have the power to command thousands of soldiers and horses? Kill! Xiao Hua slapped the top of his head with the back of his hand. The Yuaning's hand was displayed, and it turned into a palm the size of an acre and grabbed toward the sky. Boom, boom, boom. With a series of explosions, the huge palm grabbed the awe-inspiring qi pillars and shattered them. However, the huge palm was also defeated. The entire Jade Mountain was set off by a hurricane. Sand and stones flew everywhere. Not only were the huge trees uprooted, even the black armored army who were sitting quietly were unable to maintain their sitting posture. One by one, they were blown into the air. Some crashed into trees, some crashed into rocks, and many more died. Retreat, retreat. General Hao Hu struggled to stabilize his body. Seeing the loss of his soldiers, he felt heartache. He shouted loudly and commanded the soldiers to retreat. After breaking the awe-inspiring qi pillars, Xiao Hua didn't dare to be careless. After all, the awe-inspiring qi that surged towards him seemed to be able to suffocate people. He hurriedly slapped his hand again, and the seal of overturning the sea roared and flew out of the space. Under the urging of his magic power, it directly charged into the thousands of soldiers and horses. Woo! At the beginning, the seal of overturning the sea was still like a whirlwind, rushing through a huge gap. However, after only advancing a few zhang, it seemed to have encountered a huge obstacle. Even though the seal of overturning the sea flashed with intense brilliance, it still couldn't advance even half a foot. Oh, this is somewhat interesting. Xiao Hua was slightly surprised. He looked at the arrogant-looking old master Zhan Rushui in the distance. Both of his hands moved, and rays of brilliance entered the void. However, in a moment, thousands of golden rays of light appeared near Zhan Rushui. These rays of light flashed around Zhan Rushui's body, like countless small snakes approaching Zhan Rushui. However, after a moment, those rays of light didn't fall even half an inch. It was as if Zhan Rushui's body was surrounded by the defense of the 5 elements, blocking Xiao Hua's magic technique outside. Xiao Hua was greatly shocked. His face revealed an inconceivable expression. Immediately after, he rubbed his hands again. Those thousands of golden rays of light flourished and advanced a few more inches. Unfortunately, these golden rays of light only surrounded Zhan Rushui and were unable to bind him. You want to go against the will of my hidden immortal continent's eternal scholar? Your cultivation is still a bit shallow. Zhan Rushui laughed loudly. Your Taoist technique is inferior to the silk thread in the hands of this old man's embroiderer. Break. However, after hearing Zhan Rushui's soft rebuke, another wave of dense killing intent burst out from his body. Xiao Hua's fingers trembled from shock. The thousands of golden rays of light turned into nothingness. That noble qi even condensed into a sword array and pierced toward Xiao Hua. Old ignorant man. Xiaohua was slightly angry. However, in his heart, he truly somewhat admired old Master Zhang's method. Previously, on the way to Jade Mountain, he had already talked with Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei about the effects of Confucian cultivation scrolls. He himself also read scrolls incessantly. After Xiaohua cursed, he waved his hand, and the seal of turning the sea returned to his space. Soon after, he coldly glanced at the somewhat arrogant Zhang Rushui and waved his hand again. A golden ray of light soared into the sky. A pair of scissors like a flood dragon streaked across the sky. That dragon's tail swayed, and the noble chi that was like a magnificent army with thousands of men and horses was cut in half. The sword array was also disrupted. That golden ray of light didn't stop. Like a waterfall, it chopped toward Zhang Rushui's waist. Yan Jijin, who was watching from afar, was extremely shocked. He finally understood why Lung Qingge and the others were defeated by Xiaohua. Who was Zhang Rushui? He was a famous Confucian scholar in the hidden immortal continent. He was truly an expert with a sharp tongue. One word could kill 1,000 soldiers. One word could kill 10,000 horses. He was currently the strongest person Tong Zhuge could ask for. Although this old master didn't practice Confucian cultivation techniques, this old master was brimming with talent. His strength was comparable to the top of the 5th level. In front of this kind of expert, Xiaohua actually didn't fall into a disadvantageous position. After several fights, he still had a backup plan. How could Tong Zhuge be his opponent? Seeing that the golden ray of light was like a waterfall, cutting off the noble chi and rushing toward Zhang Rushui's waist, Yan Jijin was greatly shocked. He couldn't help but shout, "Old master, be careful." At the same time, auspicious clouds also appeared under Yan Jijin's feet. His eyes flashed with absolute determination. Chapter 35-56. Child's Play. Zhang Rushui snorted coldly, but the awe-inspiring aura several feet around him immediately turned into a whirlwind, carrying Zhang Rushui's body skyward. He really had the power to soar 90,000 miles. The soaring dragon's scissors instantly cut through the air, and, at the same time, the whirlwind whistled. Unexpectedly, like Xiaohua's nascent soul hand, it turned into a huge fist and smashed toward Xiaohua. The space several dozen feet around Xiaohua froze, as if thousands of years of students were waving their fists together to attack Xiaohua. Xiaohua furrowed his brows. The soaring dragon scissors, which were originally taking advantage of the situation, drew a few feet of golden light before stopping. Facing the 70-year-old Zhang Rushui, a weapon like the soaring dragon scissors was really too savage. Xiaohua really couldn't bear it. Just now, he had only used 60% of his magic power and didn't dare to use the full power of the soaring dragon scissors. Xiaohua raised his head to look at the fist in the sky and the awe-inspiring aura all around him. He patted his chest, and the 5 silk handkerchiefs of the 5 chi-righteous thunder rushed into the air. Once the silk handkerchiefs appeared, 5 colored clouds rose. Xiaohua opened his mouth, and 5 rays of sword energy fell on it. An immortal slaying platform slowly emerged from the clouds. Thunder is the command of the heavens. Once my thunder comes out, all will obey. Xiaohua's voice was like spring thunder. He waved his hand, and the 5 chi-righteous thunder roared like 5 huge dragons winding down. Regardless of whether you're an ancient student or an ancient killing intent, under my sound of thunder, all will enter the cycle of reincarnation. Rumble. Under the 5 chi-righteous thunder, the awe-inspiring aura and ferocious killing intent were actually faster than boiling water falling on snow. They instantly turned into nothingness, or merged into the heavenly thunder, or hid in the void, and disappeared without a trace. Swish! The soaring dragon scissors from before flashed in the air and swept past Zhang Rushui. The belt around Zhang Rushui's waist immediately broke. Brat. Zhang Rushui turned pale with fright. How is this Taoist thunder controlling technique possible? Unfortunately, before he could say anything, Xiao Hua's nascent soul hand once again covered him. Pooh! The big hand had already grabbed Zhang Rushui. Put me down. Yan Jijin, who was already flying, had just seen Zhang Rushui's escape. His heart relaxed. His figure originally stopped in the air, but when he saw Xiao Hua's attack, he was shocked and angry. He shouted, also wanted to use the awe-inspiring aura. But the surrounding awe-inspiring aura's 5 chi. How could it still listen to his command SSSS? SSSS, S-Dragon, S-Chi, S-Chi's, SSSS, Soul Hand. This blue water was very fierce, and the sound of water splashing could be heard. The remaining stone walls were instantly corroded by the blue water. However, the nascent soul's hand was still shining brightly and wasn't corroded at all. Forget it. Yan Jijin sighed and waved her hand. She took out an inch-long white bone. This white bone was like a dagger, and there was a thumb-sized blood-red rune on it. This rune was very small and strange, so others couldn't see it clearly. Yan Jijin stabbed the white bone into her heart. Wong! There was a faint buzzing sound. The blood seeped into the white bone, and the entire white bone gave off a blood-red glow. The rune that went deep into the blood trembled. In the blink of an eye, the rune absorbed all the blood, and the entire white bone entered Yan Jijin's body. Yan Jijin's face was bright red. He looked at Xiao Hua's big hand and urged the clouds under his feet. His eyes were like blood as he cried, Xiao Hua, quickly let go of old Master Zhang. Otherwise, this old man will not let you go even if I become a ghost. Oomph. Xiao Hua sneered and waved his big hand in the air. If you want to be a ghost, then don't be a ghost. This old man also never wanted to take the life of a great scholar like old Master Zhang. He was only bewitched by you. Woo! Yan Jijin's body suddenly expanded. She rushed towards a nascent soul's hand and let out a mournful cry. Pong! With a loud sound, Yan Jijin's body exploded. Blood and flesh flew everywhere, and a lot of blood fell in the nascent soul's hand. A bit boring. Xiao Hua frowned. He waved his hand and blocked the blood and flesh. He flew into the air and coldly said, This old man said I won't take old Master Zhang's life. Why are you in such a hurry? Before he finished speaking, the nascent soul's hand turned into a ray of light and flew into the distance. Only when he was dozens of kilometers away did he release his hand. Zhang Rushui was thrown to the ground in a sorry state by the nascent soul. Seeing the golden big hand suddenly withdraw like a god, Zhang Rushui's face was disappointed and frustrated. He really didn't understand how Xiao Hua's Dao Sec's thunder technique could defeat his noble spirit. However, he didn't have time to think about this. He stretched out his hand and tightened the belt around his waist to see if he could reattach the broken part. Xiao Hua withdrew his nascent soul's hand, and the soaring dragon shears hovered in the air for a moment before falling into his hand. At this moment, the night was even darker, but the surroundings of Qinyu Mountain were even more chaotic. Mountain rocks were scattered, trees were toppled, and many black armor soldiers were smashed into the stone walls by the Aoran Chi pillar and turned into meat paste. After the Aoran Chi dissipated, an unconcealable smell of blood gradually diffused. Sai Xiaohua sighed. He scooped up the 5 Chi Thunder silk handkerchief into his dantian. It was still set up by the Confucian cultivator Xiao Hua into the immortal slaying stage. Then, he looked at the silent Qinyu Mountain and said loudly, Generals of Qinyu Mountain, this old man is here to save Jiang Country's state teacher Li Xiang. You can send him and the disciples out. This old man doesn't want to kill again. However, after half a cup of tea's time, the silence was still the silence. The night was still the night. There was no change. Oomph. You really won't turn back until you hit the south wall. Xiao Hua sneered. He scanned the area with his spiritual sense and said indifferently, Since that's the case, don't blame this old man for being unreasonable. As he spoke, Xiao Hua's body turned into a rainbow. He didn't walk on the chain bridge and rushed towards the entrance of Qinyu Mountain. Buzz, buzz. Just as Xiao Hua's figure crossed the cliff and had yet to fly over the mountain stream, suddenly, the bloody light around Xiao Hua's body flourished, covering the golden light in an instant. The mana around Xiao Hua's body stagnated, and his body fell into the black water of the mountain stream like a falling stone. Old man. Xiao Hua was shocked. Looking at the bloody light floating around his body, he immediately understood the reason why Yin Jijin self-destructed in front of him. This was something he had planned long ago. Just as Xiao Hua hurriedly urged his nascent soul to transfer his true essence, he heard a strange sound in his ears. It was like a flood that overflowed the sky. At the same time, a burst of light and shadow appeared in front of his eyes. It was like the mountains were shaking. The scenery around Xiao Hua had completely changed. Qinyu Mountain was gone, the cliff was gone, and only a black sky and black earth remained. There was no starlight in the darkness, no moonlight, only an unpleasant stench, an illusion array. A moment later, Xiao Hua's mana returned to normal. He frowned and stopped. He was about to open his Dharma eye to take a look. Chirp! A bird-like sound entered Xiao Hua's ears. A strange rune flashed in the darkness in front of Xiao Hua. This rune was somewhat similar to the runes of the Dao sect that Xiao Hua cultivated, but it was completely different. As soon as this rune appeared, a kind of blazing heat was born from the rune. Even the rune itself appeared a kind of crimson color. Roar! Just as the bird-like rune appeared, another angry roar came from behind Xiao Hua. This time, the rune was different from before. It actually emitted a light green color, and this color carried a kind of desolate coldness. What is this? Xiao Hua's curiosity was greatly aroused. He simply withdrew his Dharma eye, and golden light flashed around his body. He was more curious. At this time, what kind of defensive array could the Copper Pillar State have that was more powerful than the 5 brocade cloud painting? Chirp! The crimson rune chirped again and suddenly expanded. A ball of flame spurted out from the rune, and a savage bird that looked similar to the vermilion bird rushed out. As soon as this savage bird appeared, its crimson eyes turned and immediately saw the faint bloody light around Xiao Hua's body. It raised its head, and an indescribable ferocious aura, mixed with an aura of desolation, rushed towards Xiao Hua. Yao? Yao? Xiao Hua was shocked. Knowing that he had fallen into Yin Jijin's trap, he didn't dare to be negligent. His hands formed seals, and thousands of golden threads suddenly appeared and danced around the barbaric bird. Who? The barbaric bird opened its mouth and spat out a scarlet flame. Its body was several zhang in color and quickly burned. Xiao Hua's binding technique was actually unable to land. Roar! The rune in front moved, and the rune in the back naturally didn't want to fall behind. A cyan light appeared, and the shadow of a savage beast that looked like an anteater appeared. It was also ferocious, and it was also difficult to conceal its desolate aura. Yao Formation. This is the 1,000 Yao, Sacred Realms, Yao Formation. Damn it, why would the Copper Pillar State's prison have a Yao Formation? Suddenly, Xiao Hua realized that this Yao Formation was probably what Qin Yushan was relying on. Sure enough, when the two kinds of auras clashed together, an unexpected change occurred. The entire pitch-black space instantly exploded, and the void split apart bit by bit. The pitch-black light scattered throughout the entire space. What was special was that the two strange runes circled around, and the two images of barbaric beasts carried an ancient aura as they charged toward Xiao Hua. This aura seemed to be real, and one could believe that if it was on a real cliff, it would be a scene of mountain rocks bursting and trees splashing. The aura that could crush everything in the entire space attacked everything. Xiao Hua's protective golden light flickered extremely under this aura, as if it could be broken at any time. Oh! Xiao Hua was shocked, and then he activated the Heavenly Law embodiment technique. Woo-woo! The wind howled, and in the midst of the ferocious aura, a Tinzhong golden body suddenly appeared. What made Xiao Hua puzzled was that this Yao formation actually didn't block the heaven and earth yuan qi. He activated the heavenly law embodiment technique, and a huge amount of heaven and earth yuan qi swarmed in. Woo! Xiao Hua's two big hands separately waved, one from the front and one from the back, grabbing the two vicious beasts. Xiao Hua's big hands carried the heaven and earth sleeve, and the two vicious beast phantoms were immediately covered. Chapter 35:57. Roar. Between the roars of the two vicious beasts, flames and water splashed everywhere, as if they could not escape from Xiao Hua's control. Looking again, the torn void streaked across Xiao Hua's golden body, and a wound like a baby's mouth flashed and disappeared, unable to cause real damage. Even when the stinky water fell, the golden light only flashed slightly, and in a moment, it was bounced away. This demon array is only SOSO. Xiao Hua sneered. But at this moment, roar, GG. The two vicious beast phantoms roared again. Wave after wave of ferocious aura surged out from the phantoms like a rising tide, endlessly pouncing towards Xiao Hua. Oh, what's going on? Xiao Hua was suspicious and opened his eyes, only to see two runes in front of him. One was like a thread of fire, the other was like a gurgling stream. Above the two runes, the power of starlight fell from the sky and fell on them. The runes were using the power of starlight to produce an attack. The power of the moon and stars. Xiao Hua's heart moved, and he waved his hand, wanting to use the wishful staff. But his mind changed, and Little Yellow and Little Black flew out of the space. The two little ones looked around curiously, and when they saw the two vicious beast phantoms formed by the runes, woof woof, GG, the two simultaneously roared excitedly and rushed towards the two phantoms. Alas, this Xiao was wrong. Looking at the two little ones and the vicious beast phantoms, Xiao Hua sighed. Little Yellow and Little Black are monsters, and this battle is their nature. This Xiao only put them into the space, and, although it is comfortable, even with the wonderful fate of yin and yang, it can't make them happy. Rather than this, it's better to let them go. Thinking of this, the knot in Xiao Hua's heart was untied. Qin Yushan's demon array was really powerful. Although the two little ones had some means, in the face of the two vicious beast phantoms, they were still not a match. Several times, they were beaten into the air, and blood gradually appeared on their bodies. Xiao Hua looked and couldn't help but feel distressed. Several times, he wanted to help, but several times, he held back. After a meal's time, although the two little ones fought more and more bravely, the phantoms did not know fatigue under the power of the stars, and soon the two little ones were at a disadvantage. This is a little unfair. Xiao Hua looked at the pillar of stellar force and thought to himself. Last time, when he had awakened Wang by a phase spirit, he had used the devil blade to cut off the pillar of stellar force. Here, he didn't want to reveal the devil blade. After thinking for a while, Xiao Hua clapped his hand and the ice mirror fell into the air. Following the activation of Xiao Hua's transcendence energy, the ice mirror expanded to several dozen feet in size and flew above his head. Buzz! An extremely heavy force landed on the ice mirror, causing it to emit a rumbling sound. Although the pillar of stellar force wasn't completely isolated, at least 70% of the pillar of stellar force was blocked by the ice mirror. Woof, woof. GG. When they saw Xiao Hua make a move, the two little ones were excited. They wagged their tails and pounced over once again. After all, they were just illusions and the runes of the demonic array. Without the support of the pillar of stellar force, in less than half an incense stick's worth of time, the two little ones paused in midair at the same time. One let out a humph, and the other let out a ha. Silver light emitted from their mouths and noses, and they absorbed the soul essences of the two runes into their bodies. As the illusions of the two vicious beasts disappeared, the entire demonic array collapsed in an instant. Walala! The sound of water was incessant. It was the black water surrounding the Jade Mountain that fell from midair. The night sky was revealed. The light of the cliff also appeared. Right at the entrance of the cave in front of the Jade Mountain, a group of people wearing black armor, under the lead of a general who looked as if he had just lost his parents, stood there stupidly, looking at Xiao Hua in disbelief. Xiao Hua's cold eyes swept over them, and he simply ignored them. His gaze fell on the two bones floating in midair beside him. One of the bones was scarlet red, and the other was green. It was similar to the color of the two vicious beasts from before. However, these bones were rather large. One was as thick as Xiao Hua's leg, and the other was as big as a person. Moreover, the runes on these two bones were so dim that they were almost indiscernible. They were exactly the same as the runes that Xiao Hua had seen before. These are strange bones. Could it be that the demonic array was made from these bones? Xiao Hua knew that this was not the time to think too much. He waved his hand and collected the two bones. Then he looked at the exhausted Goldie and Blackie flying beside him. "How is it?" Xiao Hua asked with a smile. "It's nothing, father," Blackie replied. "The boy feels quite full. It's just that the taste is a bit bitter. That little bird is a bit too weak." Goldie's reply was different from Blackie's. If it wasn't for the pillar giving it strength, the boy would have already defeated it. And this is just the beginning. If you too... Speaking up to here, Xiao Hua suddenly realized something. He couldn't help but be ecstatic. This was because Goldie and Blackie were not talking to him through their minds like before. Instead, they were speaking from their beast mouths. Although it was their first time speaking, it was actually very smooth. Presumably, the two little things had practiced a lot in the space. "Ha!" Xiao Hua laughed. Without saying anything, he waved his big sleeve and collected the two little things into the space. He looked at the group of people at the entrance of the cave and shouted, "This old man is in a good mood today. I originally wanted to overturn this Jade Mountain of yours, but I'll forget about it now. Quickly release Li Xiang and the others." "Xiao, Daoist Xiao." The general at the front had just woken up. He hurriedly jumped down from his horse and bowed. This one is on horseback. Please invite Daoist Li and the others to come up." "Humph, at least you know how to behave." Xiao Hua coldly snorted. All kinds of intimidating actions in his mind were thrown to the side. Sure enough, not long after, a young man covered in blood appeared in front of Xiao Hua. His hands and feet were shackled, and there were thick chains on his shoulders. The young man's hair was stuck on his face. There were many bloodstains on his face, and there were also some bloodstains on his face. However, these could not stop the young man's arrogance. Following the young man came out, there were dozens of people. Among them, 9 of them were strung on the same chain as the young man. The others were divided into 3 groups and strung on other chains. After the young man came out, he narrowed his eyes and looked at Xiao Hua, who was standing in the air. He stuck out his tongue and licked his dry lips. He did not open his mouth to speak. Damn it! Xiao Hua saw this group of people in such a miserable state. He couldn't help but feel a chill in his heart. He knew that Li Xiang and the others must have suffered a lot in the Jade Mountains National Prison. Even their cultivation would be crippled. After all, who would understand the principle of eliminating evil? "Why don't you hurry up and remove their torture devices?" Xiao Hua roared, who knew that the general trembled and knelt down on one knee. He cried out, "Let Daoists know that Daoist Li and the others were already wearing torture devices when they were escorted here. The items used to remove the torture devices are not in the Jade Mountain." When Yin Jijin came over, he did not say anything. Xiao Hua frowned and asked. Lord Prime Minister did not give this general anything. The general lowered his head and said, "He only said, if Daoist Li killed his way to the Jade Mountains cave, we did not need to do anything. Everything will be done according to Daoist Li's request. As long as Daoist Li and the others see them, he will definitely spare our lives." "Oh, why would this old man spare your lives?" Xiao Hua was very surprised. "Fellow Daoist." At this time, Li Xiang opened his mouth and said in a hoarse voice, because this Li's cultivation was not crippled by the copper pillar state. This Li's disciple should be the same. Therefore, Yin Jijin felt that fellow Taoist Li would let this Li spare their lives on this account. So that's how it is. Xiao Hua was overjoyed and nodded. Fellow Taoist, Li's cultivation is still there. Congratulations. If these soldiers' lives are spared, then so be it. I will listen to fellow Taoist's orders. Li Xiang said coolly. Uff. Xiao Hua opened his mouth and a sword light flew out. Clang, clang, clang. Dozens of crisp sounds rang out. The chains on Li Xiang and the other shoulders, as well as the torture tools on their hands and feet, were all shattered. Moreover, the sword light was extremely sharp. When the chains and torture tools broke, it did not affect their injuries at all. Fellow Taoist Li, this one is Xiao Hua of the Tao sect. Right now, I can be considered the state teacher of Jiang country. The princess of Chongling and Qin Xiaoyao asked this Xiao to come to the Jade Mountain to rescue fellow Taoist. Fortunately, I did not fail my mission. Fellow Taoist and the others' injuries can be dealt with after leaving this place. Xiao Hua said as he put away his flying sword. Oh, hearing Xiao Hua call himself the state teacher of Jiang country, Li Xiang was clearly stunned. However, he raised his hand with some difficulty and said, I thank the state teacher for saving us. I will listen to the state teacher's arrangements. All right. Xiao Hua nodded and shouted to the general of the Jade Mountain. Why aren't you preparing the horses? Yes, yes. The general hurriedly waved his hand. The soldiers behind him hurriedly jumped down from their horses and led the horses in front of Li Xiang and the others. Let's go. Xiao Hua looked at the flat cable bridge again. It was rather narrow and could only allow one person to pass through. He waved his hand and said, All right. Li Xiang stepped on the stirrups and responded. He wanted to get on the horse, but he was too weak and could not get on. The black armored army of the Copper Pillar country did not dare to be negligent and quickly helped him up the horse. Thank you. Li Xiang glanced at the black armored army and said indifferently. The black armored army shrunk their necks and replied in a low voice, I don't dare. Li Xiang's words of thanks made Xiao Hua's lips curl up slightly. Facing an enemy soldier who had tortured him to such a state, Li Xiang was still able to say these two words. One could imagine Li Xiang's magnanimity. Xiao Hua did not save him in vain. The other dozens of people were even weaker than Li Xiang and were unable to get on their own horses. They were all sent onto their horses by the black armored army. Li Xiang shook the reins and was about to move out when an anxious voice shouted from the other side of the cliff. Taoist Master Xiao. Taoist Master Xiao. I have eyes but fail to see. I do not know Taoist Master Zhao's true appearance. Xiao Hua frowned and raised his head to look. He saw that young Master Zhu from before was rolling and crawling. It was unknown if he was flying or running, but in short, he appeared on the cliff in an extremely sorry state. There were a few bloodstains on his forehead, the scholar's scarf on his head had long disappeared, and the brocade robe on his body had several holes in it. Chapter 35:58. Who are you? Which fellow Taoist disciple are you? Why should this old man help you? Xiao Hua asked indifferently. This young man is not a Taoist disciple. Young Master Zhu took a deep breath and said, This young man is a disciple of the Zhu clan in Shuzhou's Weiyuan County. My name is Zhu Xiang. My father's name is a secret. My Zhu clan is the descendant of the great scholar Zhu Shi. Due to a rumor in the outside world that my ancestor Zhu Shi accidentally obtained the heavenly book's true enlightenment, we were forced by a scholarly family. Now that my Zhu clan has declined, it can no longer be considered an aristocratic family. However, the king of the Copper Pillar State is still obsessed with the heavenly book's true enlightenment. My father and my Zhu clan's disciples were captured by them and brought to Qinyu Mountain. Now, their fate is unknown. Heavenly book's true enlightenment? Xiao Hua's face showed a thoughtful expression. He asked, What's that? This young man doesn't know. Zhu Xiang replied without hesitation. This young man has never heard my father mention this. I reckon that my Zhu clan has never obtained the heavenly book's true enlightenment. This should have been made up by my ancestors' enemies. So it's like this. Xiaohua nodded slightly. He understood that this so-called heavenly book's true enlightenment was probably a rumor. If the true enlightenment existed in this world, how could Xin, who came from a scholarly family, not know? How could the true enlightenment of the five cheese unifications be lost? However, to Xiaohua, it didn't matter whether there was the heavenly book's true enlightenment or not. Since Zhu Xiang was a descendant of Zhu Shi and a member of the Zhu clan, how could Xiaohua not help him? Thinking of the Zhu clan's family of four in Jinghua City, the talismans on their bodies, and the scroll that old lady Zhu gave to Xiaohua in his own space, Xiaohua couldn't just stand by and watch. Quickly go and invite old master Zhu Qing out. Xiaohua ordered indifferently. This, the black-armored general slightly hesitated. However, he immediately came to his senses and hurriedly shouted, Quickly bring old Master Zhu and his family out. Not long after, a Confucian scholar of around 50 years of age and a dozen slightly younger scholars were supported out. These Confucians were even more miserable than Li Xiang. Some had lost arms, some had lost legs, and even more of them did not have a single piece of good flesh on their bodies, their flesh badly mangled. The Confucian scholar in his 50s had his eyes half open, and his face was swollen to a size larger than an ordinary person's. He couldn't even walk. Father, Zhu Xiang couldn't hold it in any longer and hurriedly ran over from the chain bridge. At this time, a few family guards had already arrived behind him. They hurriedly pulled him back and said anxiously, Young master, don't be anxious. You can't cross this chain bridge. Let me invite old master out first. Oh, all right. Zhu Xiang was very obedient. He stopped and called out to Zhu Cheng. Father, the person in the air is Jiang was national advisor, Taoist Master Xiao. He was the one who saved you. Zhu Cheng reluctantly raised his head and looked at Xiaohua in the air. He cupped his hand with difficulty and said, This old man. Thanks, Taoist Xiao. You're welcome. Xiaohua nodded. This old man has some connections with the Zhu family, so saving you is something I should do. Oh. Zhu Cheng stared blankly for a moment. His eyes turned slightly, and he opened his mouth again. Taoist Master Zhao's cultivation. Is it at the 5th level of origin energy? Xiaohua frowned. He didn't understand why Zhu Qing asked such a question. After thinking for a while, he nodded and said, And probably, why are you asking this? Zhu Qing clenched his teeth. He extended his hand and pulled out his waist blade from the black-armored army beside him. The black-armored army was shocked. He hurriedly tried to dodge, but when the black-armored army dodged, Zhu Cheng lost his balance and was about to fall. Xiaohua waved his hand and supported Zhu Cheng. He smiled and said, Old Master Zhu, why lower yourself to the same level as a soldier? Zhu Cheng didn't answer. He flipped his hand, and the tip of his waist blade pierced into his calf. Shua! With another push, his calf was cut open and blood flowed out. What are you doing? Xiaohua was shocked, and the others were also puzzled. Father! Zhu Xiang shouted even louder. He wanted to pounce over. Zhu Cheng took a deep breath and threw his waist blade away. He extended 2 fingers and groped around in the flesh of his calf. He took out something smaller than the size of his finger. He extended his trembling arm and weakly said, Taoist Master Xiao, save my life. I have nothing to repay you with. This is something passed down from my ancestors. As for what it is exactly, I don't know. Today, I will offer this to Taoist Master. Without waiting for Zhu Cheng to finish speaking, Zhu Cheng's head tilted and he fainted. That little thing stained with blood was still tightly held in his hand, and he raised it in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua instantly understood Zhu Cheng's intention. He slightly shook his head. He couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. If Zhu Cheng was trying to divert the disaster, Zhu Cheng had also asked his own cultivation. His strength had reached the 5th level of origin energy. In the Taoist sect, he was a spirit-severing stage cultivator. He definitely had the strength to hold the Zhu clan's inheritance. If Zhu Cheng was only trying to repay a favor, Zhu Cheng had no reason to offer this item in front of so many people. It was obvious that he wanted to throw away the inheritance that had implicated the Zhu clan. Moreover, Xiaohua was a Taoist sect cultivator. Zhu Qing's Zhu clan's inheritance was used by Confucian cultivators. Zhu Qing also didn't see Xiaohua's flying sword. Naturally, he didn't know that Xiaohua was a Confucian cultivator. What use did Xiaohua have for it? Forget it. Xiaohua pondered for a moment, but didn't refuse. He simply went with the flow and waved his hand. The blood-stained item fell into his hand. After carefully examining it, he stored it in his space. Then he coldly said to the people in front of the Jade Mountain, "You all saw that this old man took this item. If anyone dares to leak the news, they will die. If anyone dares to leak it, I will definitely return to the Jade Mountain. I will kill everyone I see." Taoist master. The general in front of the Jade Mountain smiled bitterly and said, "If the monarch asks, this general doesn't know how to report it." Moreover, Zhu Cheng gave it to Taoist master. Although the general didn't finish his sentence, Xiaohua understood. After thinking a little, he felt that it was true. If these people didn't dare to leak it, who would know that it was in his hands? If they wanted to find it, wouldn't they have to look for the Zhu clan? Wouldn't he have taken advantage of them and still acted innocent? His previous warning was like taking off his pants to fart. It was completely unnecessary. You just have to report it as it is," Xiaohua coldly said. "However, you still have to pass a message to your monarch. Don't think too much. Although I don't like to kill people, if there is any entanglement, I will definitely not be merciful. There won't be any benefits like Jean Rushui today." Yes, this general understands. "This general has already reported it to my monarch." The general hurriedly replied. Li Xiang, who hadn't left before, raised his eyebrows when he heard Jean Rushui's order. His eyes were secretly filled with astonishment. Then he looked at the black armored army in front of the Jade Mountain, who were more well-behaved than rabbits. He understood a lot in his heart. At this moment, the dozen or so guards of the Zhu clan also leaped over the cable bridge. When they arrived near, they all bowed to Xiaohua and hurriedly left with the unconscious Zhu Cheng and the others. Zhu Xiang, who was at the edge of the cliff, knelt down toward Xiaohua and kowtowed a few times before following the crowd. Previously, when Zhu Xiang asked Xiaohua to save Zhu Cheng, he didn't kneel down. However, when he saw Xiaohua accept Zhu Cheng's item, he knew that Xiaohua was righteous and had sincerely blocked the disaster for the Zhu clan. The gratitude in his heart was incomparable. Finally, he pushed the golden mountain down the jade pillar and threw away the gold under a man's knee. Looking at Zhu Xiang's back, Xiaohua suddenly thought of Jingbo City's Zhu Feng and hurriedly transmitted a few words. Zhu Xiang stared blankly, his entire body trembling. He hurriedly turned his head. Although he didn't say anything, anyone could clearly see the wild joy on his face. Without waiting for Zhu Xiang to say anything, Xiaohua clapped his hands and took out a few jade bottles. With a wave of his hand, the jade bottles flew across the mountain stream and landed in front of Zhu Xiang. Xiaohua then said in a clear voice, "Young Master Zhu, please tell your father on behalf of this old man that if this old man has the time, I will definitely pay a visit to the Zhu clan." Zhu Xiang received the jade bottle and carefully put it away. He said respectfully, "My Zhu clan will never forget Taoist Master Zhao's great kindness. Taoist Master Zhao's life will be passed down in my Zhu clan for generations." "Here you go." Xiaohua waved his hand, lowered his head to look at Li Xiang and the others and laughed. "Fellow Li, let's go as well." "All right." Li Xiang patted his mount, and the black horse let out a long neigh. Its four hooves flipped as it rushed towards the direction of the chain bridge. However, after a while, dozens of people had crossed the chain bridge, and Li Xiang's cultivation had yet to recover, so his consciousness could not be used. However, seeing the destruction caused by Xiaohua and the others, Li Xiang was even more surprised in his heart, and when he saw the black armored army that covered the entire mountain range, his surprise had already reached its peak. He was the second imperial advisor of the Jiang country, and had fought with the Copper Pillar State for many years. How could he not know the power of the Copper Pillar State? Since the Copper Pillar State had placed such an elite here, and even had the great scholar Jean Rouchouet, then what about the Copper Pillar State's imperial advisor, Long Chinga, General Hao Hu? All of a sudden, a general in bright armor appeared at the foot of a mountain not far away. His rock-like face had an indescribable expression as he looked at the top of Li Xiong and the others. Li Xiong was shocked when he saw this person. Immediately, Li Xiong followed General Hao Hu's gaze and saw Xiao Hua's figure slowly rising up in the sky. In front of him was a heavenly horse that was flashing with a holy light, dragging a carriage and flying out. It was precisely descending from the sky to welcome Xiao Hua. Taoist Master Xiao. Taoist Master Xiao. Li Xiang's heart was filled with complex emotions. Seeing Xiao Hua's figure land on the flying carriage, he muttered to himself. When Xiao Hua landed on the flying carriage, Lu Yi and Wang Yi flew up, saying that they were welcoming their master. The two of them had limited cultivation, and Xiao Hua was afraid that the battle would affect the two of them, so he made the heavenly horse and flying carriage stop at an extremely high altitude. The two of them could not see the specific situation and could only hear the extremely loud rumbling sounds, as well as various colored lights. At the same time, they could feel the intense changes in the heaven and earth origin energy, causing their hearts to clench together. Later on, the entire mountain range fell silent, and the heavenly horse did not fly down, causing them to be even more afraid. Only when the heavenly horse was urged to fly slowly did the two of them finally relax. "You can wait here." Xiao Hua waved his hand and sat down cross-legged. With another wave of his hand, little yellow, little black, and little silver appeared in the air. When Wang Yifei saw little yellow, his eyes widened. He instantly thought of what Xiao Hua had said earlier, and his expression changed greatly. Chapter 35:59. Father, Mother, two little mouthfuls of human language, jumping happily in front of Xiao Hua. Knowing that he can leave home, Xiao Huang also regains his previous happiness. When Xiao Huang sees Wang Bianfei, he wags his big tail and complains to Xiao Hua, "Mother, Mother, this boy said his master is more powerful than Mother. You go and find his master. Boy doesn't believe that there is someone more powerful than Mother in this world." Master, Wang Bianfei miserably stands there, looking pitiful. He secretly glances at Xiao Huang, not knowing what to say. "Xiao Huang, this is Mother's disciple, Wang Bianfei." Xiao Hua says with a smile, "The master he is talking about is Mother." "Ah, is that so?" Xiao Huang is stunned, then wags his tail and flies around Wang Bianfei a few times. His dark eyes stare at Wang Bianfei a few times and cries, "Boy, since you were Mother's disciple, why didn't you say so earlier?" "That young master," Wang Bianfei says with a smile, "didn't this little one just know? Master has already scolded this little one before. Today, this little one apologizes to young master." Saying that, Wang Bianfei bows. Forget it. I won't lower myself to your level." Xiao Huang's tone is very similar to Xiao Hua's. His tail wagging is as clean and nimble as Xiao Hua's hands. "Bianfei, no need to call him young master." Xiao Hua snappily says, "Just call him Xiao Huang. You are this old man's disciple who is not included in the wall, so you are of the same generation as him." "Yes, master." Wang Bianfei smiles, knowing that Xiao Hua is no longer angry with him. "Mother, what is the same generation?" Xiao Huang is very curious. Xiao Hua doesn't answer. He turns to Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei and says, "You wait in the car first. This old man will talk to them for a while." After Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei enter the flying car, Xiao Hua says with a smile, "Xiao Huang, this world is incomparably huge. It is not something our family can compare to. Moreover, there are a lot of people and a lot of things in this world that you can't know by staying by Mother's side. Previously, Mother was reluctant to let you go out because she was afraid that you would encounter some danger. Just now you also saw those two. Savage beast soul. Although they are very powerful, there are many things in this world that are more powerful than them. Mother, this boy is not afraid. This was Goldie's answer. Daddy, how powerful is he? This was Little Black's question. You can only know how powerful he is when you see it with your own eyes. As for whether I'm afraid or not, that's secondary. The most important thing is to stay alive. Xiao Hua lovingly looked at the two little things. He knew that today was the day of separation, and these two demonic beasts couldn't even differentiate between mother and father. How could they become real demonic beasts? A demonic beast that couldn't even distinguish between peers was definitely not a qualified demonic beast. Xiao Hua's exhortation lasted for several hours. Seeing the scorching sun overhead, under the flying car, Li Xiang and the others were a little tired from riding. Only then did Xiao Hua reluctantly listen. It seemed that he still had a lot to say, as if he always wanted to keep the two little things by his side for a while longer. However, the two little things' wings had to grow and they could only leave his side. He had done everything, so the two little things could only remain ignorant forever. Seeing that Goldie was a little impatient and Little Black was listening with great interest, Xiao Hua couldn't hide a kind of feeling in his heart. It was as if the two's departure emptied his heart. Suddenly, a kind of distant memory appeared in his mind. That memory was some white hair, some tears, and some faint fragrance of milk. Mother! Xiao Hua's eyes were moist. Where are you? Mother! At this time, an even weaker voice sounded. This boy also wants to go out with you. What are you going to do? You're so young. Didn't you hear what Mother said? It's very dangerous outside. Wait until you're a little older before you tell Mother. Goldie's voice was very impatient. Xiao Hua was helpless as he looked at Little Silver and said, Little Silver, just call this old man Master. Yes, Master. Little Silver felt very wronged. It looked like he also wanted to be rebellious like Goldie. It's not that I don't want you to go. Xiao Hua suddenly had the awareness of being a mother, and almost self-taught, he coaxed Little Silver. Look, your mother and Little Black are both gone. So doesn't this mean that there's no one by this old man's side? Do you want this old man to be alone at home? That's true. Little Silver mumbled a little. Xiao Hua struck while the iron was hot. Also, Little Silver is very capable and can help this old man by staying with him. Wasn't it Little Silver who discovered the primordial stone mine in Black Cloud Ridge? You've really done this old man a big favor. The boy knows. Little Silver was a little proud as he nodded his little head repeatedly. Mother, when is the boy leaving? Goldie urged. Xiao Hua looked at the scorching sun and said, Go now, but you have to remember, don't have the heart to harm others and be on guard against them. You two have to discuss everything. Mother, you've already said this 4 times. Xiao Huang interrupted Xiao Hua's words. Little Black said, Yes, Father. The boy understands. He definitely won't let Father worry. The boy will take a look outside. He'll be right back. I go. Xiao Hua waved his hand. No matter how much they talked, they had to part in the end. Even if he didn't let Goldie go today, what about tomorrow? The day after tomorrow? All right. Goldie wagged his tail and soared into the sky. He casually put down something and flew away. Little Black didn't hesitate and hurriedly chased after him. Seeing the two leave, Xiao Hua's heart softened and his eyes became slightly warm. Fortunately, before Xiao Hua could release his divine senses to catch up with the two little ones, one black and one yellow light flashed, and the two little ones flew onto Xiao Hua's shoulders. They hugged Xiao Hua's head on each side and called out, Mother, Father, the boy really is going out to take a look. He'll be right back. Don't be sad. Xiao Hua quietly rubbed his eyes and smiled. The wind is a little strong. Mother got sand with her own eyes. Don't worry, you two go. Be careful, take a look, and learn more. Mother will be waiting for you two at home. Although Goldie wanted to go out, he was also reluctant to part with Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's sadness just now made his heart clench. Hearing Xiao Hua's comforting words, he seemed to have grown up a little. He looked at Xiao Hua and said, Mother, don't worry. The boy will definitely become the most awesome in the world, and then come back to help Mother. Mother doesn't want you to become the most awesome, and I don't want you to become the most outstanding. Xiao Hua smiled and stroked Goldie's and Little Black's heads. You two have a good experience. Coming back safely is Mother's greatest wish. I know, Mother. Goldie jumped up again. The boy is going out to take a look. Maybe he'll come back tomorrow. And it's all right. Xiao Hua concealed the parting in his heart and nodded slightly. It's already late. Go quickly. Yes, Daddy. Little Black obediently flew away from Xiao Hua's shoulder. Goldie acted coquettishly for a moment before flying away. However, after flying away, Goldie flew back to Little Black's head. The two little ones could be considered to have turned their heads while flying. Xiao Hua felt very upset. His divine senses followed them for more than 10 li, and then looked into the distance for nearly 1,000 li before he retracted it. AI, shouldn't I give them more things? Teach them more ways to protect themselves? Xiao Hua sighed and touched Little Silver, who had also taken the opportunity to jump onto his shoulder, a little regretful in his heart. Unlike Yuan Tongtian, Xiao Hua had only given the two little ones the rejuvenation pill. He hadn't even given them the mother-child spirit fruit, let alone any cultivation methods. Xiao Hua's intuition told him that what he had might not be the best. Moreover, Goldie and Little Black had already said earlier that some things had gradually emerged in their minds, which are their respective inheritances and cultivation paths suitable for them. If he stretched his hand out for no reason, it would only delay their growth, just like keeping them by his side in the past. Maybe tomorrow? Maybe the day after tomorrow? Xiao Hua looked into the distance and thought, they'll come back after suffering a little, right? Xiao Hua was now the father and mother of his children on a long journey. He was afraid that his children would suffer a lot, but he also wanted them to come back sooner, and even more so, he wanted them to have some success. But how could Xiao Hua control the affairs of this world? The waves that Goldie and Little Black had stirred up were beyond Xiao Hua's expectations. Little Silver, hurry up and cultivate when you get home. Xiao Hua was like a nagging old man as he exhorted Little Silver. Help this old man after you've succeeded in your cultivation. Otherwise, your mother will blame you when she comes back. Yes, master. Little Silver nodded obediently like a little person. Come out later, Xiao Hua said. Yes, master. Lu Yi and Wang Bianfei stayed in the flying car. Listening to Xiao Hua talk so much to the two little ones, they each had something on their minds, and their eyes were red. Hearing Xiao Hua call them, they hurriedly came out to answer. Master, you're really too good to them. Lu Yi, who hadn't spoken rashly all this time, looked at Little Silver on Xiao Hua's shoulder and said enviously, It's not like you're a demon pet at all. This is this old man's boy. Xiao Hua sighed and stroked Little Silver. Little Silver also obediently licked Xiao Hua's finger with his little tongue. This old man has never treated them as demon pets. By the way, Master, I heard Dao Xiao say that demon pets need to be bound with some kind of restriction, otherwise they might betray their master or be captured by other cultivators. Lu Yi was still a little worried as he asked, Master, you definitely don't have any restrictions on them, right? If you let them go just like that, what kind of restriction would my children need? Xiao Hua said with a smile. They're all intelligent and can understand human speech. This old man has never thought of it that way. However, if anyone dares to bully them, this old man absolutely won't let them off, even if I go to the 9th heaven or the 9th hell. Thinking of how protective Xiao Hua had been in the Black Cloud Ridge primordial stone mine, even when the Black Bear spirit had been bullied, Xiao Hua had still wanted the other party's arm. Lu Yi stuck out his tongue and laughed. I hope no one is blind. Otherwise, they'll be in deep trouble. Chapter 3560. Master, is this little guy called Little Silver? Can he play with us? Wang Bianfei asked with shining eyes. If you let him stay in the small Qinkuan bag all the time, of course he'll get sick of it. This little one thinks it's great to be by your side. Why do they want to leave? I think it's because Master doesn't want them to come out. You're right. Xiao Hua nodded and patted Little Silver. Go play with them. If you want to cultivate, come back to me. Yes, master. Little Silver was more obedient than Little Yellow. He flew up from Xiao Hua's shoulder and landed on Wang Bianfei's head, making Wang Bianfei laugh. Seeing the envy in Lu Yi's eyes, Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand. The divine power, centipede, came out of the space. Xiao Hua pointed at Lu Yi and said, You go too. Accompany Lu Yi, and I'll give you benefits in the future. Chirp, chirp. The divine power centipede was very happy. Although its expression couldn't be seen, its twisted waist revealed its intentions. It drew a black line in the air and landed on Lu Yi's shoulder. The divine power centipede naturally wasn't as fun as Wang Bianfei. It was even a little scary. However, Lu Yi had seen how powerful it was before, so he naturally knew more than Wang Bianfei. When he plucked up his courage to touch the divine power centipede's cold carapace, the divine power centipede waved its antennae in response. Lu Yi's mood improved greatly. Yeah, that's right. Although this Zhao space is good and full of spirit qi, it doesn't have human energy. Who can resist loneliness? Even Lu of Nirvana strives to move forward in the midst of Nirvana. Xiao Hua looked at the four little things' happy and harmonious appearances and secretly made a plan in his heart. Whether it was the yang side of the space or the yin side of the space, they both needed energy. It looked like he would have to spend more effort in the future. I wonder how Little Yellow and Little Black are doing? As Xiao Hua pondered, he suddenly thought of the two little ones. In the end, Xiao Hua dismissed the idea of releasing his divine will or Buddhist awareness to check on the two little ones. Since he was going to let go, he might as well leave them behind. There were many things in the world that were difficult to reconcile, and he didn't lack parting with them. Below Xiao Hua, Li Xiang and the others were still riding on their horses. They did not dare to stop and rest. Although these people were cultivators, the torture they suffered in the Jade Mountain prison was several times more than ordinary people. Now, they could not hold on any longer. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept across the flying carriage and ordered them to rest. Then, he walked towards Li Xiang and cupped his fists. Fellow Taoist Li, this Xiao has some matters to attend to. So this Xiao was unable to invite fellow Taoists to ride on the flying carriage. I hope you can understand. Li Xiang was stunned. He did not expect that Xiao Hua's first words would be an apology. When he came back to his senses, he hurriedly waved his hand and said, The flying carriage is Taoist Zhao's own property. I have already received Taoist Zhao's grace. How can I care about such a small matter? It's good that fellow Taoist doesn't mind. Xiao Hua said with a smile. Fellow Taoist, please rest for a moment and check out the situation of the disciples first. All right, Li Xiang nodded and said, Spiritual Master, please return to the flying carriage first. I will report to you later. No need. Xiao Hua reached out his hand and took out some prepared clothes and some pills from his small universe bag. He handed them to Li Xiang and said, This Xiao could just wait here. Thank you for your trouble, Taoist Xiao. Seeing that Xiao Hua had prepared so thoroughly, Li Xiang was very happy. He cupped his fists and received them. At this time, several disciples came over from behind him. After greeting Xiao Hua, they helped Li Xiang take the clothes and pills back. There was not much to say in the wilderness. Dozens of people helped each other remove the remaining iron chains and torture tools from their bodies. They simply tidied up and changed their clothes. After taking some pills refined by Xiao Hua and resting for a while, they gathered in front of Xiao Hua and bowed again to thank him. Seeing that everyone was still somewhat tired, Xiao Hua smiled and took out some spirit fruits and handed them to Li Xiang, saying, Fellow Taoist Li, please distribute these to the disciples. After eating, we will rest for a while. It won't be too late to continue our journey when we are full of energy. Li Xiang saw that Xiao Hua respected him very much and did not directly overstep his boundaries. He was even happier in his heart. After receiving the spirit fruit, he first took one for himself, then had someone distribute it to the other disciples. He smiled and said, Jinren Xiao is really considerate. It has been a long time since I ate such a good spirit fruit. It's nothing. Fellow Taoist, Li suffered a lot in prison. These are all compensation. Xiao Hua waved his hand and looked at the people sitting on the ground. He asked, "How are the disciples?" When his disciples were mentioned, Li Xiang's face became bitter. He shook his head slightly and said, "The situation isn't too good." "Oh." Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, "Can you tell me the details?" "Actually," Li Xiang smiled bitterly and explained, "the Copper Pillar State is far from as benevolent as Taoist Xiao thinks. That day, they didn't think about destroying this Li Xiang's nascent soul. It's just that before they used the Confucian secret technique, they suddenly stopped. At that time, the jailer didn't plan to hide this Li Xiang's plan. He directly passed down the order of the Copper Pillar State's king, saying that he wanted to keep this Li Xiang's nascent soul for great use. That's why this Li Xiang's nascent soul was imprisoned. It's not like what the former Jade Mountain Guard general said, keeping fellow Taoist's nascent soul for great use." Xiao Hua was somewhat confused. However, he also knew that Li Xiang couldn't possibly know the details. Asking would be pointless. Thus, he said, "No matter what, fellow Taoist was able to keep his nascent soul. His 1,000 years of cultivation didn't turn into water. This is already very fortunate. What about your disciples?" "The disciples under this Li Xiang's tutelage aren't so lucky." Li Xiang said, "There are 40 of them. Among them, there are 5 golden core cultivators. The rest are in the heartbeat and spirit silence realms. The 5 disciples' golden cores were completely destroyed. As for the other 40 disciples, more than half of their cultivations were destroyed. Now, they're all mortals. It's that serious." Although Xiao Hua said it was serious, his expression didn't change. After all, as Li Xiang said, they were both enemies. He was able to kill Lung Qingge and force Yin Jijin to self-detonate. Naturally, the king wouldn't be merciful to Li Xiang and the others. Needless to say, the remaining half of the disciples were naturally all low-level disciples in the heartbeat realm. It was the same logic as how he couldn't completely kill all the ordinary black armored army in front of the Jade Mountain. Li Xiang sighed, "I am not talented. Although I've already cultivated to the nascent soul stage, I could be considered a Tao sect grandmaster of the hidden immortal continent. However, I did not have any attainments in the Tao of alchemy. Furthermore, the Tao sect of the hidden immortal continent is declining, and the spirit grass and pill formulas are all controlled by the Confucian cultivators. I'm afraid it will be as difficult as ascending to the heavens." "Oh." Xiao Hua looked at Li Xiang, who was not in a good mood, and laughed. "Let those disciples whose cultivations have been destroyed come over. I will help them take a look, and maybe I can help you think of a way." "Ah, Taoist Master Xiao." Li Xiang was startled, then immediately became wild with joy. He could not believe his own ears. After all, there was no special connection between strength and alchemy. He used to be the imperial advisor of a country, but he did not have such a method. Xiao Hua this. Although he was the imperial advisor, he was actually the imperial advisor in name. What kind of spirit grass could the Jiang country, which no longer existed, provide him with? Xiao Hua actually proposed to take a look and even said that he would think of a way. He must have some confidence. "Taoist Master, please wait a moment." Li Xiang anxiously turned his head and ordered his disciples to hurry over. Xiao Hua had some experience in recovering his cultivation. Nearly 30 cultivators checked one by one, and even asked in detail. Everyone could not suppress their joy as they stared at Xiao Hua's face. Unfortunately, other than a faint smile on Xiao Hua's face, there was still a faint smile. They could not see anything else, but it was this faint smile that gave them great confidence. Xiao Hua was extremely patient, and he checked for an entire hour before raising his head and smiling at Li Xiang. "Fellow Taoist Li, there's no need to worry. After the shackles on your nascent soul are removed, I'll make a move with you, and the cultivations of these disciples will surely be able to recover completely." All right, everyone's hearts had been hanging there the entire time. When Xiao Hua finally spat it out, they couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief, and their gazes became even more fervent. "Taoist Master." Li Xiang was also relieved. He opened his mouth, but didn't know what to say. To be honest, in the previous Jade Mountain, he had never thought that he would be able to come out alive, and he was really tired of the days of being the Imperial Advisor. He had been the Imperial Advisor twice. The first time was the Imperial Advisor of the Li Nation. He had racked his brains for the Li Nation, but in the end, the Li Nation was destroyed, and he had no choice but to submit to the Jiang country. Fortunately, the Jiang country was also established by the Dao sect, and in order to survive, he had no choice but to become the second Imperial Advisor of the Jiang country. This was his second time as the Imperial Advisor. But even so, how could his disciples not have any friction with Qin Haoyue's disciples? Although the hidden immortal continent did not allow Dao sect cultivators to recruit disciples and only allowed Dao sect disciples to serve the country, weren't these disciples their own disciples? How could Li Xiang and Qin Haoyue not know about the friction between their disciples? In addition, Qin Haoyue was not a magnanimous person, so Li Xiang was suspected and probed a lot. Even so, in the end, Li Xiang's cultivation did not increase by much, and instead, because of the destruction of the Jiang country, he was captured by the Copper Pillar State and brought to the Jade Mountain. Xiaohua saved Li Xiang, and when Xiaohua revealed his identity, Li Xiang already understood. He had already thought of an excuse, and even when Xiaohua asked why his cultivation was not crippled, he spoke up for the Jade Mountain's guard general. It was obvious that he did not want to offend the Copper Pillar State, and he did not want to be the master of country. That was really meaningless. However, Xiaohua did not invite him to the flying carriage, nor did he mention anything about the Jiang country. Now, he even proposed to help his disciple recover his cultivation. Xiaohua's words were good. He wanted to attack together with him, but he was very clear in his heart. How could he have such cultivation? This was Xiaohua giving him face. All right, fellow Daoist Li, please get on the carriage. I have some things to ask you. Xiaohua did not look at Li Xiang's hesitation and invited with a smile. If there is nothing special about your disciple, we should hurry on our way as soon as possible and talk as we go. After all, if we can reach the Black Cloud Ridge earlier, we can help them recover their cultivation earlier. Chapter 3561. Seeing Xiaohua like this, Li Xiang could only sigh and smile. I don't dare to ask for advice. Daoist Xiao, please. Then, Li Xiang ordered the disciples to get on their horses and head towards Black Cloud Ridge. Although the disciples couldn't fully recover, when they heard that reaching Black Cloud Ridge a day earlier meant that they could recover their cultivation a day earlier, how could they not get on their horses? Even the disciples who still had their cultivation hurriedly activated their cultivation techniques, hoping to be able to fly as soon as possible. Xiaohua waved his hand, and the Pegasus flew down. Xiaohua ordered Lu, Yi, and Wang Beifei to get off and ride the horse that Li Xiang was riding before, while he invited Li Xiang to get on the flying carriage. When the Pegasus rose into the sky again, Li Xiang and the other disciples also started to hurry on. AI Daoist Xiao. Li Xiang sat on the flying carriage and looked at the shining Pegasus in front of him and sighed. Using this Pegasus, isn't it too ostentatious? Aren't you afraid that Confucian cultivators will be jealous? Hee, this Xiao has done many things that would make Confucian cultivators jealous. This one won't make a difference. Xiaohua laughed and didn't mind. This one won't make a difference? Li Xiang said with a smile. Daoist Xiao took the Zhu clan's ancestral item right in front of me. Although this Li doesn't know what it is. Since even the king of Bronze Pillar Country was moved, it must be something that Confucian cultivators would be jealous of. This Xiao also doesn't know what it is. Xiaohua clapped his hand, and a fingernail-sized bone appeared in his hand. At that time, this Xiao only thought that this item would be of some use to this Xiao, and could also help the pitiful Zhu family resist the disaster, so I accepted it. AI, that Zhu clan's head is too calculative. Li Xiang was naturally more calculative than Xiaohua, and sighed slightly. This item is hidden in the flesh. If this Li guessed correctly, It should be condensed together with the bone. Even if you use the clear eyes technique, you wouldn't be able to find it. The previous general of Jade Mountain used who knows how many methods to interrogate the whereabouts of this item, but he never thought that it would be in someone's calf. Moreover, the moment the Zhu clan's head escaped danger, he immediately took out this item without hesitation. He kept saying that he was grateful to Daoist Xiao, but he really had evil intentions. If this Li was this Li would definitely turn around and leave at that time and ignore him. Daoist Xiao is too kind. Daoist, Li's head's hand? Xiao Hua asked with interest. Li Xiang replied without hesitation. Even if I take this item, I will definitely make the generals of the Jade Mountain swear a blood oath. I will even force the king of the Bronze Pillar country to swear that no one will speak of this matter. That Zhu family head will go for wool and come home shorn. Ha, it's not that bad, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Sometimes suffering losses is a blessing. If not for the fact that Zhu Cheng was forced into a dead end, he might not have handed over the inheritance of his family to this Xiao. The reason why he did this was because he was thinking about the future of the Zhu clan, right? Xiao, S head, SSS have, S is Zhao Xiang's. SAS Xiao Hua laughed. Ha, fellow Daoist Li is really good at joking. S Xiao's head, S Xiao's. Don't even mention how much trouble this Xiao will have to bear for this item. Li Xiang laughed. Even the Buddha Kingdom's old Baldi wouldn't be able to do such a thing. Xiao Hua put away the bone. Li Xiang didn't ask any more questions. Xiao Hua's. Xiao Hua's. Xiao Hua waited for Li Xiang to sit down before saying, if Daoist Xiao is at ease, then let me take a look at your nascent soul and see if I can help you break the seal. Of course I'm at ease. Li Xiang shook his head. But the seal on my nascent soul was made by a Confucian cultivator. I can't sense my nascent soul at all. Even if I use a technique, my nascent soul won't move. I'm afraid I'll have to find a Confucian cultivator's friend and ask them to help. But then he smiled bitterly. Moreover, this seal was made by the Copper Pillar State's Lung Chinga. If I want to break it, I'll have to find someone with a higher cultivation than him. I'm afraid they'll have to be at the 5th level of the Origin Energy Great Grandmaster. Secondly, the Great Grandmaster has to be afraid of the Copper Pillar States. Difficult. But then, Li Xiang suddenly froze. In his mind, the scene of Xiao Hua spitting out a flying sword and chopping off the chains on his body appeared. Then, he thought about how Xiao Hua took the Zhu clan's ancestral treasure without hesitation. He almost blurted out, Daoist master? Could it be you also know Confucian cultivation techniques? Just SOSO. Xiao Hua smiled. My cultivation isn't good enough. I can barely kill Lung Chinga. Lung Chinga was killed by Daoist Xiao? Li Xiang was even more shocked. Yes, Yin Jin is also dead, Xiao Hua said indifferently, just in front of the Jade Mountain. Li Xiang was stunned for a long time before coming back to his senses. He nodded and said, I finally understand why the Jade Mountain's Guardian General was so respectful to Daoist Xiao. Even General Hao, who stood at the top of the mountain and didn't dare to say a word. Oh, looks like Zhu Cheng really went for wool and came home shorn. This is called suffering a loss is a blessing. Xiao Hua corrected. Now, Daoist Xiao can rest assured, and let me take a look. Of course. At this point, how could Li Xiang not be at ease with Xiao Hua? How could he not let Xiao Hua take a look? After obtaining Li Xiang's permission, Xiao Hua extended his hand and pointed his index finger at Li Xiang's lower dantian. A thin, almost inaudible crystal thread came out from his index finger. After watching the crystal thread enter Li Xiang's body, Xiao Hua closed his eyes and seemed to be thinking. Li Xiang looked at Xiao Hua's expression. It was actually the same as the previous disciples, with a smile on his face. Li Xiang's heart also rose to his throat. Fortunately, after half a cup of tea's time, Xiao Hua opened his eyes and said with a smile, Daoistly, this restriction was set up by the Bronze Pillar State using the 5 brocade cloud diagram. If you don't know the 5 brocade cloud diagram, I'm afraid it won't be easy to break it. Li Xiang clearly hadn't heard of the 5 brocade cloud diagram. His face revealed disappointment. He forced a smile and said, "Many thanks, Daoist Xiao. Since you know the origin of the restriction, I'll find someone to break it later." "Ha, Daoist Li, why didn't you let me finish?" Xiao Hua smiled and said, "This 5 brocade cloud diagram was also the killing array that Lung Qingge had set up in the Black Cloud Ridge that day. This Xiao killed Lung Qingge and just happened to destroy this array. That array diagram is now in this Xiao's hands." Phew! Li Xiang let out a breath of relief. He wasn't surprised anymore. After all, Xiao Hua gave him too many surprises. Oh! Xiao Hua saw that Li Xiang's face didn't show any joy. He felt strange and asked, "What? Could it be that Daoist Li doesn't believe me?" Li Xiang helplessly shook his head. "Daoist Xiao, I feel that there isn't any difficulty for you at all. I'm too lazy to be happy." "Huh, Daoist Li's words are good. I like it very much." Xiao Hua clapped his hands and said, "If Daoist Li is anxious, I can break the restriction in your body right now." "Many thanks, Daoist Xiao." It would be a lie to say that he wasn't anxious. A nascent soul cultivator suddenly turned into a mortal. The sense of insecurity in his heart was far greater than others. Li Xiang hurriedly cupped his hands and said. Xiao Hua waved his hand and said, "However, I'm afraid that I can't let Daoist Li see the method to break the restriction." "No worries," Li Xiang hurriedly said with a smile. "Right now, I'm the fish and Daoist Xiao is the knife. As long as Daoist Xiao doesn't chop me into fish paste, it's fine." "Huh?" Xiao Hua laughed and patted the heavenly horse. The heavenly horse neighed and rushed into the sky with a flying carriage. In a moment, it disappeared from everyone's eyes. The restriction on Li Xiang's nascent soul came from the 5 brocade cloud diagram. Not only could the 5 brocade cloud diagram be broken, even the 5 Qi thunder could also break it. Xiao Hua even thought about whether or not he should use the heaven cleansing earth technique to try it. However, seeing that the nascent soul in Li Xiang's lower dantian was already extremely weak, Xiao Hua was afraid that he might injure this nascent soul and damage Li Xiang's Dao foundation. As the saying goes, those who don't know how to do it are not difficult for those who know how to do it. In Li Xiang's eyes, the seemingly extremely difficult restriction was broken by Xiao Hua in the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Li Xiang opened his eyes and sensed his body. His nascent soul had already returned to normal, and there was nothing abnormal about his body. Although he didn't know if Xiao Hua did anything to him, looking at Xiao Hua's very calm expression, he didn't think too much. After all, Xiao Hua didn't need to go through so much trouble. "Daoist Xiao, do you have a jade phosphorus pill?" After checking his nascent soul, Li Xiang didn't hold back and simply asked Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua shook his head. "I don't have a jade phosphorus pill." Li Xiang was slightly disappointed and said with a smile, "My nascent soul was injured. If I cultivate in peace, I'm afraid it will take several years to recover. When I was captured, all my medicinal pills, magic weapons, and other things fell into the bronze pillar state. When Daoist Xiao rescued me, the guarding general didn't return my Qingquan bag. Presumably, those things aren't in the Jade Mountain, and my jade phosphorus pill is in my Qingquan bag. I don't have a jade phosphorus pill, but I have a nourishing spirit pill and a clearly pill." Xiao Hua said with a smile and took out 2 jade bottles. "Nourishing spirit pill? Clearly pill?" Li Xiang frowned. He had never heard of the names of these 2 medicinal pills. "Oh, nourishing spirit pill is used to repair divine sense, and clearly pill is used by golden core cultivators." Xiao Hua explained. "I don't have medicinal pills for nascent soul cultivators like me, so I ask for fellow Daoist Li's forgiveness." Li Xiang smiled bitterly. How could the medicinal pills used by golden core cultivators and nascent soul cultivators be the same? However, when he thought about it, Xiao Hua wasn't a real state preceptor, so how could he have real medicinal pills? "Fellow Daoist Li, take it first. It's better than nothing." Xiao Hua handed over the jade bottles and said, "If fellow Daoist Li has the pill recipe, I can actually refine a jade phosphorus pill for fellow Daoist Li." The Jade Phosphorus Pills pill recipe is in the hands of State Preceptor Chin Haoyue. I don't have it. Li Xiang's words were not without resentment. When I was the state preceptor in Li Country, I also entrusted others to refine medicinal pills. The pill recipe I obtained later is also in my Chinquan bag. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.